This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Housing Committee meeting of Manhattan Community Board 11. Today is June 6, 2023. I am John Green, the excuse me, the chairperson of the committee. I'm also joined by Marlene Pierre from the board office. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:45 p.m. Before we begin the meeting, there's a few ground rules. At first, no one may speak until granted the floor. Community board members, I should say, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. Excellent. The chat function should not be used for community board business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. Okay. Marlene, you call roll, please.
Juhab Chowdhury, Roger Flores, Brandon Gillespie, here. John Green,
here.
Beverly Pabon,
Shalom, present.
Claudia Perez,
Present.
Dawn Sanders, Anne Marie Vasquez is excused.
Right.
Candy Vives Vasquez.
Present, I'm sorry, present.
Thank you. Jason Wu and Cynthia Ramos.
Present.
You have a quorum, John.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. Okay, the agenda was sent out in advance and is available on the community board website. If there are no objections from any member of the committee, the agenda will be adopted at this time. Seeing no hands raised, the agenda has been is adopted. The minutes for the May meeting have been sent out in advance and they're available on the community board website. If there are no objections from members of the committee, the May committee minutes will be adopted. Okay, seeing no hands, the May committee minutes are adopted as well. Okay, so next, okay, announcements. Okay, on May 20th, Mayor Adams released Emergency Executive Order 411, which will be in place through June 20th, 2023. The New York State Open Meetings Law allows community boards to have virtual meetings where there is a local state of emergency declared by the mayor. In other words, until almost the end of this month, we can still have virtual meetings. Now basically, what is remaining to be seen if this will still be in effect when we reconvene in September.
Oh, sorry.
And so basically the thing is that, but you will be informed if there's any changes, if we're still meeting virtual when we reconvene in September. Okay. Are there any announcements that any member of the committee would like to make? Candy?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yes, the 116th Street Block Association is going to be having a housing street fair on the 24th of June. I will be putting out the flyers so like that you could disseminate it. I invite the community board as well to join us. It's gonna be, the theme is housing is a right for everyone. And it's gonna have different various agencies and organizations tabling out information regarding housing information and different resources so that they can be helpful to help themselves and also to spread the word out for everyone. So that's gonna be Saturday, June 24th, and that's between 12 and 4 in the afternoon. And that's gonna be at 115th Street between Park and Madison, in front of the Block Association's office, but on that street area. So everyone is welcome to come and enjoy and get all the information that can, one can receive and pass it forward to other individuals as well. If anybody has any questions or would like to table and put up a table as well, and or just join us, just give me a call and we can discuss it from there. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Candy. Are there any other announcements that anybody on the committee may have? Are there any announcements from any member of the public? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll continue. Are there any informational updates from anyone on the committee? Okay, I see a hand in Ms. Burnkoff.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Athena. I'm with the East Harlem Barrio Community Land Trust. I will be presenting later when there's time in the agenda, but I thought this might actually be a good opportunity to make an announcement about a community event that's coming up, and this way there'll be more time for maybe other questions in my presentation. But East Harlem Barrio Community Land Trust is part of a coalition called the New York City Community Land Initiative, which has been advocating for a bill package called the Community Land Act. And I'll go a little bit into detail about that later. It's essentially a bill package of 4 legislative either bills or proposals, essentially trying to create a pathway for community members throughout New York City to have access to land and have better opportunities for land ownership and collective ownership of land and buildings. And so there will be a rally coming up this Thursday, June 8th at 12 p.m. at City Hall Park to just drum up support and energy for the bill package. So maybe what I'll do is I can see if I can add the flyer into the chat somehow. But happy to take any questions if that's helpful. And hopefully we'll have I don't want to take up too much time, but hopefully we'll have some time to go into a little bit of detail about the bill package itself. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bazell?
Hi, thank you. I was put onto this community board by WeAct. I'm actually working there this summer. And so I just like to share, there's like, similar to what the person just said, there's another community event being put together by me. So I just want to quickly say that, my pronouns are she, they. My name is Julie Bazile, and I work for WeAct in their civic engagement organizing department. And this summer, I'm working towards facilitating a workshop on educating the community on New York's New Green Amendment. We'll be discussing how to interpret the law and its implications for people of color and low-income New York residents. So I'd recommend you keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions or want to know more, I'd be happy to share my contact info. And that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Yes, Ms. Brazil, just put your contact info in the chat, please. Thank you very much.
Will do.
Okay, Beverly? Beverly, if you're talking, you're muted.
Can I be heard now?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to ask about, I think it was Athena, regarding the Community Land Trust, if you can post the information and the dates of the events in the chat, please. Thank you. And everyone else that has anything. So I can follow up and the rest of the community. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Beverly. Okay, If there are no other informational updates, we can start with the presentations. Okay. Pre-ULURP informational update, Ray, proposed Timbale Terrace project. Timbale Terrace is a proposed affordable housing mixed-use development project to be built at 119th Street and Park Avenue. The project includes 330 residential units, 9 of which will be supportive housing, as well as a performing arts center and dedicated parking for the 25th precinct. The project is subject to ULURP, which is expected to begin in the fall of 2023. I'm not going to even try that. I don't even want to mess up your name. So, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, and it's Agata.
Agata, okay.
May I share
okay.
my screen, Mr. Green? I'm going to share the presentation.
Yes, you can. The floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. Agata, the floor is yours.
Great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Agata Niklitska, and I'm with the Manhattan Planning Team in the Office of Neighborhood Strategies at HPD. With me tonight are also my colleagues, Felipe Cortez, James Chikoff, and William Sedgwick, and members of the development teams working on this project, who will introduce themselves either throughout the presentation or during the Q&A. As part of the pre-ULURP process, we're excited to be here tonight presenting the Timbale Terrace project to you. And our agenda for tonight will be as follows. The Timbale Terrace project came to be as a direct result of feedback received during the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan, which was completed in 2016 and was developed to provide recommendations for addressing key neighborhood issues. One of the key housing recommendations of the plan was to use public sites to advance 100% affordable housing projects with additional services for residents. In 2021, Timbale Terrace, otherwise known as Site B, was selected by HPD via a competitive RFP to redevelop the NYPD parking lot located along Park Avenue between East 118th Street and East 119th Street. The applicant for this application and project is HPD, and the development teams working with us are comprised of the Mega Development and Contracting Group and the Lantern Organization. HPD and the development teams are aiming to get this application ULURP certified during the fall of this year. The new 19-story building proposed under Timbale Terrace will include approximately 340 residential units, of which up to 99 will be supportive housing units plus 1 building manager's unit. The proposed development will be developed under HPD's Extremely Low and Low Income Affordability Program, otherwise known as ELA, and the AMIs for the non-supportive housing units will be affordable to households or individuals earning up to 80% AMI. The proposed development will be developed on 11 city-owned lots located on block 1767, which are currently utilized as parking for the NYPD's 25th local precinct. And to facilitate this project, HPD is proposing the following land use actions: a UDOP designation and project approval and the disposition of the development site, and an acquisition of approximately 30,000 square feet of the proposed development on the ground and second floors to provide space for 75 NYPD replacement parking spaces. And here you can find a more overhead view of the context of the location. The project's address will be 101 East 118th Street, and the proposed development will be located next to Schaefer Hall and Prospero Hall, existing buildings managed by Lantern to the eastern portion of the lot. And now I'll turn it over to Michelle and Diane from the development teams to speak a little bit more in detail about the project.
Thank you, Agatha. And thank you, CB11 and Chair, for having our team here to present Timbale Terrace. My name is Michelle Ponce, and I'm here on behalf of Mega. Mega is a full-service general contracting, construction management, and real estate development firm. For the course of our 30-year history, Mega has focused on affordable housing. We have a long history of working with community-based and not-for-profit organizations to develop and construct quality residential projects that meet the needs of residents. Also part of the project team is the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance, also known as ALJA. ALJA was founded in 2007 by Grammy Award-winning pianist and composer Arturo Farril as a nonprofit organization to advance the performance and educational aspects of Latin jazz. Alga's programming spans to 5 boroughs with performances and venues throughout New York City and educational programming that serve school-age children. Now I will pass it on to my colleague, Diane.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. You can go back or not. So I'm here representing, my name is Diane Lord Michelle. I'm here representing Lantern. Lantern is a not-for-profit developer and social service provider. We've been dedicated to expanding the supply and the impact of quality, affordable, and supportive housing. And to date, we've developed, excuse me, I have a little bit of an allergy thing going on. To date, we've developed close to 1,400 units of housing across New York City. We've also been part of the East Harlem community since about 2000 when we opened our Schaefer Hall development. That's 91 units. It's a mix of tenancies. In 2015, 15 years later, we then opened the 87 unit Prospero Hall. Both of those projects are on 118th Street. So I want to just tell a little bit about how our vision and our team came together. Tambali Terrace really, from the beginning, was a reflection of both our expertises and our areas of strength, but also our commitment to honoring the goals that were set forth in the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan and the Community Visioning Report. We're dedicated to expanding the supply of affordable housing for a range of incomes, including deeply affordable and vulnerable populations. We also really honored having been a resident of this particular area of East Harlem, the need and the desire to activate that corridor along Park Avenue, which has been a little underutilized. It's by an overhead, the Metro railroad track. And we thought it was really important to find the right commercial or community facility use that would bring that space alive. We were, through a very fortuitous meeting, we actually became deeply involved with the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. And they were, at the same time that we were seeking the perfect partner, they were looking for their new home, a home where they could actually combine performing arts, their commitment to reflecting and celebrating the musical traditions of East Harlem, and also a place that would be a magnet for others. And last but not least, we just wanted to make sure that we were honoring beauty in the design and open space and gardening and things that were healthy and wholesome. Just to give you a brief overview, I'm glad my voice is coming back. A little sip of peppermint tea can always do the trick. So a broad overview, it's a 341 unit mixed income project. 30%, a full 30% of the units are sized for families. That's 2 and 3 bedroom units. We actually, on the ground floor, which is the corridor that we're trying to activate, but also the floor below that, the cellar space, we have both performance space, but a real home, robust home for the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance, the New Music and Arts Center. And on the 16th floor, we've really built out an entire floor just dedicated to social services space, but also a range of residential amenities that can benefit every tenant in Tambali Terrace, as well as hopefully members of the community, the larger community. And I'm going to turn it back over to my partner.
Thanks, Diane. All right, just to follow up on what Diane did with the introduction, we'd like to further discuss Tambali Terrace's residential component. As Diane mentioned, we're going to have 341 units. We're planning to finance the project through HPD and HDC's Extremely Low and Low Income Affordability Program, also known as ELA. And this will allow us to deliver an integrated residential community. Tambali Terrace is going to offer 100% affordable housing and will target households and individuals earning between 30 and 80% of the area median income. As we can see here on the unit mix table, and just reiterating Diane's point, 30% of our units, or 102 units, are dedicated for families, and we recognize how important it is to deliver affordable family units in the community. We are also planning for a community preference for the non-supportive units. And our team is also looking forward to hosting local training sessions for community members that are interested in applying through HPD's Housing Connect 2.0 portal. Now, just to give context to the affordability and the income tiers, we have this table here. So as of 2022 for household income, so if we wanted to say a family of 3, to be considered at 30% of the area median income, they would need to have a total household income of $36,000. And to be considered at 50% of the area median income, that same family would technically need to be considered earning about $60,000. And we can also see just how that fluctuates and moves around. So who are these people? Let's say, for example, an individual that does earn 30% of the area median income, that is a waiter or a home care aide. Someone earning 50% of the area median income can be a teacher or a construction worker. And someone earning on the 70 to 80% of the AMI tier can be a nurse. So now I'm going to pass it back to Diane.
Okay. So again, our vision of community impact actually is expansive. It includes the neighborhood. As you said, one of the main, I think, draws is the Afro-Latin Music and Arts Center. It will be a hub. It will activate the corridor. It will also be a place for education and many other things, which you'll hear more about at the meeting for workforce, economic development, and arts and culture. I want to just also again reiterate that the residential amenity space on the 16th floor will include meeting rooms and include fitness and yoga, spaces for the residents so they can work out. And then hopefully we can also open it up to, local entrepreneurs who are fitness experts who need a space to conduct their classes. And then lastly, well, just in terms of space, I just want to say again, there will be a very ample social service suite that'll be also providing resident services to tenants at Tambali Terrace. Lastly, I don't want to reiterate it, but as Michelle said, there is a definite local commitment to both local hiring and working with minority and women business enterprises.
Great, thanks, Diane. So just to bring it back again, what are the community impacts that Tambali Terrace will have? And as Diane has iterated, it's the arts and culture, calling back to the community's vision for an arts and cultural center that tells the history of East Harlem and also celebrates local artists. And that is the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance Music and Arts Center. This new home will help expand their successful multi-generational programming, including free music education for children. And as Diane mentioned, we'll learn more about ALJA programming and what's to come at the June 20th committee meeting. Okay, and lastly, just to conclude our presentation on Tambali Terrace, we'd like to touch on Tambali Terrace, the building and design. Again, reiterating what Diane said with our visioning and our guiding principles was community goals for sustainability, for open space, for recreational spaces available to tenants. So Tambali Terrace incorporates all of that, and it also incorporates passive house standards. We're planning to have green roofs and solar panels throughout the main roof. Residents will also have access to 3 outdoor spaces located on the 3rd, 8th, and 16th floors. The 8th floor in particular, we're planning to have planters for horticultural programming. And lastly, just to touch base on the different uses we do have at the building, our design does take into account separating the egresses for these uses. So residents will have their own entrance, ALJA will have its own entrance, and the NYPD parking lot will also have its own entrance along 119th Street in proximity to the current precinct location. So that concludes our presentation to the Housing Committee. Thank you all again so much, and we'll open it up now for any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Beverly?
Beverly has her hand raised, yes.
Beverly? Beverly, if you're speaking,
yes,
you're muted.
Thank you, Chair. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marlene, and thank you, ladies, for beautiful presentation. We've been following this program project. So, you've been here before. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, the AMI changes over time. I know when we first came here, I can't remember exactly. Yeah, I've been a member since 21, but I believe, the AMI does change. Y'all haven't broke ground yet. And so I'm wondering, by the time you finish, the AMI does change a lot, within the next couple of years. And I don't want a lot of our people that's in the community to be priced out of this or can't afford this. So is it any way that when we say yes to this project, that the AMI can be protected so people won't be priced out, or is anything that can be done with that? My next question is regarding the services that you are going to have for the residents, and you have a lot of things that you're going to have with classes and dancing and everything like that, which are great. But I would just make it a suggestion that one of the classes or one of the services that you have would be the business of art, the business of film and music. That would, teaching us how to dance and stuff is great, but sometimes people want to start their own business in this or know the financial uptick it might be if I go into this as a business, and giving more the people in the community, especially the children, an idea as to, I can make this a career, to be added to part of services. And my last question is that I'm not sure 100%, but I believe that were there any issues with the community regarding Lanton's other buildings? I vaguely remember some of the residents speaking about that, and I just want to know whether or not that was resolved. And if you're still working on it, what are you doing? And thank you very much for the presentation, and I'll sit back to listen to your answers. And again, thank you.
So I can take the second and the third question, and maybe
Sure.
Agatha or Felipe would take the first.
Yeah, good afternoon, members of the Housing Committee of CB11. First of all, thank you so much for hosting us tonight, and it's always a pleasure to be with you on a Tuesday afternoon. Diana, thank you. Yeah, I think HPD can take the first part of the question, and then the team can take the second and third part of the questions too. Regarding the AMIs, I believe Beverly. Thank you, Beverly, for your question. Always involved in our committee meetings, and I always appreciate your questions. Regarding the AMIs, as you correctly mentioned, the AMIs usually tend to change. What we are presenting today is the, excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. I was talking to my granddaughter.
Oh, no problem, Beverly. So where I was. So what we're presenting today is the AMI mix that we have currently for the project. That AMI mix is going to continue being the same one that will make it to the end of the project, meaning after construction, the population targeting the project will still be families or individuals making up to 80% of MI. Now, the qualifying incomes, as you perfectly referred when raising the question, is that's what tends to change, right? For example, the 80% of MI that is today might be different when the project is finally done with construction. So what we can commit today is that the project will continue having the same MI mix until the end of the construction of the building. What might change might be the income. I'm not sure if you are fully aware, but the incomes change each year, and the changes are dictated by regulations established by HUD, not by HPD, not by the city. So there is little that the city can do to control those changes on the incomes. What we can do and what is our commitment today is to continue preserving, again, the MI mix that the proposed project is highlighting today, which is basically a percentage of the units being dedicated to supportive housing and the rest of the units being affordable to individuals and households, making up to 80% of MI. I hope that helps clarify a little bit your question, Beverly. If not, we can always try to come back to you with a more fully fleshed out answer in the future. And then I'll pass these to Diana or Michelle to continue answering the second and third piece of the question.
For the second question regarding the business schools, we can definitely pass it along to Alja and share this sentiment with them. I'm sure their programming is also very robust, and I think we can definitely pass that message along.
Oh, and then I'm just gonna say that we've actually had that conversation, Michelle, before you joined the project team. It was one of the things that we thought would be really important, and we have actually begun to reflect it in the design. Now, Alja has their own designer, now their new architecture firm. I expect that will be there. But our thing was that, you know, Lantern is always committed to both educational and employment empowerment, right, of our tenants. And so we were really fascinated by the idea that this center, because it's doing a lot of things, it's also doing archival, you know, things. And so we said, couldn't we have a little performing, a little like a studio where people could learn the craft of either studio recording or other business aspects, even internships that Alja might be able to offer in the future to people who are interested in the business of music and art. And then, so I said this definite interest, Beverly, is not fully fleshed out, but I would, we'll definitely take that back to Alja, and Alja will be, I think, very open and receptive. Last but not least, so with the actually engaging some of our neighbors who are near and around 118th Street, where other two projects are, we just had our second Community Advisory Committee meeting. It is a combination of representatives from CB11, from some of our local electeds, as well as various residents of like the East Harlem Block Association. It has really been, I think, a constructive forum. We have begun to tackle and just work collaboratively around some of the issues that were brought up at that former housing committee meeting. So far, it's been more peaceable, and the main thing that we can do is actually provide an open door and an open forum for getting input and then trying to find constructive solutions to things as they come up. So far, so good.
And just adding on to your point, Diane, HPD and the Timbali Terrace development teams will be presenting at the Human Services Committee next Monday, speaking specifically to the supportive housing aspect of the project. So more detail will be provided during that meeting.
You'll see me again.
Okay, thank you very much. Candy? Candy, if you're talking, you're muted. Candy? You're still muted if you talk, because we can't hear you. Okay, well, are there any other committee members that have any questions? Oh, Xavier?
Hi, John. Thank you, everyone, for being present this evening. I just wanted to clarify, because there's some bit of confusion thinking this was a proper ULURP process. Can you hear me all? Thank you.
Yes.
This is although not officially codified in our charter processes, but we put as kind of a pre-ULURP because it was brought to our attention that HPD was ready to certify. And going into recess over the summer months, we thought it would be more appropriate to not have this occur when we're going into recess. The city has, in the previous administration, taken those steps, and much to the ire of community boards across the city, which is the opportunity to have multiple bites of the apple for community input, community board feedback, and full robust discussion. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on the ULURP versus pre-ULURP, which is just a kind of coined phrase in this instance. Again, we will be in recess in July and August, and which is why the staff was, and very thankfully so, saying we need to make sure we are having a robust conversation. So I just wanted to put clarity on that. I've also dropped into the chat from HPD's own website about the AMI, which is recalculated every year. And again, Beverly, to your point, it is somewhat a bit out of our control, but they calculate on a 3-person home at that level. So you can see and peruse there. And I think that's something this committee, when the time comes, they should really go into the weeds for discussion. So I want to say thank you to everyone for being in this space. And we are working very ardently together to have a conversation. I hope that all parties will continue to lean in to find tenable solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Xavier. Candy?
Yes, sorry about that earlier. I have a question. I know that in all the meetings that you've been presenting, and thank you for the presentation. I know that Timbale will be a great, be great for the community, as we still need to continue the culture of music, which has been taken away tremendously from the education department. And so with that, I applaud them. But my concern is with Ms. Lord and the Lantern Group. I just want to make sure that, the issues that were brought up and that were addressed by some of the residents that have in the past and even in the present, you don't want to keep continuing having the same issues brought up every meeting that you go to and every community board, because I know you want to garnish enough support to make sure you see this in fruition, as we definitely need to have a lot of affordable housing built around the community. But we also want to make sure that we're addressing the issues of what the people are discussing out there in their opinions and their concerns. And I just want to make sure that you're working at it gradually, or where you're at there with them. And at least that by the time you get to the full board and we get into the ULURP and the process of voting, everything has been taken care of. So I just want to know where you stand and where you're at with that right now. It's not an attack, it's just a question. As I know that, there's a lot of support that needs to be garnished behind all of this. And I am very much for affordable housing. So I just want to make sure that the neighborhood, it's going to get you're all going to have that open door policy to be able to listen to what the public is discussing and their concerns, and that is being addressed, and how you're handling that. So that's just my concern. Thank you.
No, and that is happening. It's in process. As I said, relationships are built, as you enter into them and you honor them, right? And you're respectful. And so this is where we've begun. I said we've had 2 meetings down. There have been, at least our feedback from our community residents, our neighbors, has been positive. It's not, everything is not gone away, but there've been some distinct issues. I think we could take that offline if you'd like, we'd be happy to come to the community board and discuss some of the progress, not just from us, but with people who are actually in the forum, in the CAC. So you can get a sense of what they are seeing and what else they might want to see from us. But we're in it, and we're earnest, and we are really trying to address all those issues, because we also, we also live on 118th Street.
Yeah, but that's the reason why, because everyone is the issues are stemming from there. So what is, being mitigated, but, I understand, because I know developing is controversial, and you're not always going to please everybody, and everybody has different ideas, but we all can come into a consensus that if it's a sense of security, because, safety is a big issue right now. It's rampant all over the place, right? But just I just want to make sure that every voices are being heard, not overlooked. Yes, you may have everyone's support on the top of the echelons, but you also need to listen from the grassroots of the ones that are on the trenches, and that are going to be there and going to be the neighbors and being, you're part of your team as well, as far as the neighborhood, because it takes a whole community to make it all vibrant, and not all the time it's going to be kumbayas. And trust me, I know the controversies when it comes to developing, and everybody, wants one thing or doesn't or the other, but at the end of the day is trying to work things out. And I just want to see if that's, if that's come, where it's moved forward. And I did hear then that you did say you did create a committee
meeting. We have a committee,
right.
Standing meeting. It's the last Tuesday of every month. So far, everyone has shown up and has spoken their mind. And then, like I said, the biggest thing for us is to hear and then to try to address. And even if we don't have an instant solution, to be accountable, to hear that it is a problem. So I think that, we're starting, right? And we just are making a commitment to doing this, for the duration, as long as the community wants to meet with us. We've set up this forum, and we come, we come every time, hoping to do better. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm one of those continuous improvement people. I don't rest on.
Well, that's life, right?
That's life.
We're open for improvement.
I know, I just, and I learn from my mistakes and move it forward. And I think that's the whole team. And I think that at least right now, that's just been the spirit in that room every last Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
So
I was just, I wanted to follow up with that and see where was it, considering that I was at a previous meetings before, and it was just like, wow. So, I just want to see that if that has changed compared to when you first met with the group that you actually came and HPD came to introduce you, and it was like an introductory meeting, and it went, a little bit, differently. So I just want to see if all that kind of like diffused a little, and that there is dialogue happening with those that were concerned.
Yeah, there is.
All
and
right,
this progress is being made, so I'm proud of that. I'm happy.
Okay.
I think, Candy, what you are raising, all these comments and issues that you're raising are extremely valuable to us, not only for the team, but also for HPD. And I think what something that resonates with me is that you mentioned that this is a team effort, that you need to include the community, listen, really pay attention, and all together, not only Lantern or HPD, but also the members of the community have to be part of this solution. And I think it speaks volume what the steps that Lantern has taken so far with Mega, with HPD, of creating this advisory committee, by attending all these community board meetings, by seeking proactively to engage, continuing engaging with members of the board. Tonight we're here with you guys. Next week we'll be with the Human Service Committee. Then we'll go to another committee, and then this conversation will continue throughout Europe. And I think, right, you mentioned that the first meeting, the introductory meeting, was a little bit tense. I think I've been involved in the other meetings, and I've seen the change in the tone, not only from specific members of the community, but also from like committee members, the board member, even the team and HPD. And I think everything is moving in the right direction. CB11 is well known for always being open to find solutions, to cooperate, to contribute and participate in the conversation, and that's very valuable. And our intention is to continue helping the team to move in that direction. And with your help, get hopefully to some resolutions to some of the issues that were raised, are going to be raised, and will continue to be raising in the future. And I think the Lantern has made the commitment so far of becoming a good neighbor, become a good partner. And I think this is a relationship that is not going to only endure for this process, but it's going to go for the years to come. So I think it's very positive that we all here in this room having this very pleasant conversation, right? And I think that's phenomenal. That's something that needs to be applauded and encouraged. So thank you for participating and give us the space to continue with this dialogue.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Candy. Are there any other committee members that have a question? If not, I'm going to go to the public. Ms. Butler.
Yes, hi. First, I'd like to say to Mr. Cortez, I appreciate all your comments, but I think the reason that the tone has changed so much is that, frankly, we are exhausted from fighting so many battles. What I'm curious about is how many of these 341 units are going to contain people who have substance abuse issues, and are there any guardrails in place? Because putting them next to Prospero Hall and Schaefer Hall, that already has reported drug dealing and drug using, and then just a few blocks away from the On Point safe injection site, the community is anticipating a whole lot more influx of drug dealing, drug needles all over the place. So I'm curious, when you're touting the services that Timbales Terrace is going to contain, are people going to be required to use those services, or are we going to just have another situation where they say, oh, no, they refuse the services, so you are just going to have them laying on the floor in front of your buildings with needles all over the place? I'm just concerned that the influx of people with more substance abuse issues is going to harm them and the community. Are there guardrails in place to prevent any of that?
I'm going to speak from the HPD perspective related with the percentage of the units that's going to be dedicated to supportive services. Even though we're framing that the project includes a 30% of supportive housing and homeless set aside, that means that per city requirements and the program, 15% of the units will be set aside for formerly homeless. That means people that are ready to get into permanent housing, coming from the shelter services, and I'm ready to go and move ahead and might need a little bit of support. And then the project also includes the remaining of the percentage of the units, meaning 15%, under the program that is better known as the 15-15 program. And those units, the individuals using those units, my understanding is that they're required to receive and participate on the services because they are also getting benefits under the 15-15 program. So they need to participate and use the services that the provider will need to provide as part of the program and under the program. Regarding the specific details of the type of programming, I imagine that the provider will be able to provide more specific details in the future. I'm not sure if, Diane, you have, if the team has already prepared the set of strategies and programs that the organization is planning to provide here in this building. What I've seen most commonly in other projects using the 15-15 programs, they have like a specific number of case managers, mental and drug substance abuse help and services to the tenants. I believe the tenants are subject to daily visits and meetings with the case manager. So it's a pretty holistic service. So but the details of the specific kind of programming, I don't have them yet. So that's what I can share from the HPD perspective, and that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe hopes answer the first part of your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Chan?
Thank you for letting me speak. I put it down, my comments on the chat as well. So my first question is, what is exactly the timeline of ULURP? When are you expecting to get this project approved in City Council?
Yeah, as of now, HPD and the team, we're tracking this for a fall certification, meaning right now, what I can show is that we have a draft with DCP. We're waiting to get the comments, and on this application, it's difficult to provide a specific date, but if everything goes accordingly to plan, we're aiming for probably for a September or October certification. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but prior certification, there needs to be a notification to the community board, and that needs to happen 30 days prior the certification date. So those are details that we will need to work with DCP, and obviously we will communicate to the community board as soon as we have further details. But in general, Eva, we're aiming for an early fall certification.
And how is this project funded?
Well, this is going to be funded.
A federal, state, or city program is paying for the supportive housing.
Well, this is funded with the city resources, ELA, under the HPD ELA program and the 1515 program.
Okay. And who are people that we can talk to in those programs? As I put in the web page on the chat, this specific area is oversaturated with all sort of social services. Are you aware of all these statistics that different government department has independently oversaturated this district? We just don't really have room to accommodate more people, more vulnerable individual with addiction issue, serious mental health issue in here. We have needles on the street, people using drugs on the street in front of Prospero Hall all day. Have you seen those?
I don't have the statistics on. I don't remember the statistics on the top of my head. But what I can say is that there is a citywide need for not only homeless set aside units but supportive housing. This is a crisis that we're facing citywide, and we've seen the need not only in East Harlem, Central Harlem, but also in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in other areas.
Then would you commit to having a offline Zoom meeting for us to walk you through the severity of this data?
I mean,
we can click on that link to see how extreme is this oversaturation situation happening. And it's very clear that many other districts in New York City are not taking their fair share to help other vulnerable people. We really urge the government to stop piling these people who are in need into one district.
Again, Eva, we are trying to address the citywide crisis. We're building. We're trying to.
You have to look into the individual district. I know you have an overall goal to achieve, but we are people too. We have human rights too. You cannot use Harlem as a dumping ground. It is very clear that other districts are not taking their fair share.
Eva, I will take you on the offer of having a separate conversation. I will be more than happy to attend to a meeting on this committee or in the human services. And if needed, let me know. I can try to maybe bring other folks from HB that specifically work on the 1515 program.
I really
So-
would appreciate it. I think that each government department is trying to do the best, and they're not even aware of what other departments are doing. And at the end, all the departments are putting the vulnerable people in the neighborhood of color. And it is a structural racism issue. And I know a lot of people are not aware, so we're hoping to raise some awareness.
We are more than happy to have that conversation, Eva. HPD is pushing supportive housing across the whole city, not only in East Harlem. We just got approval for a project in CB4, the MTA Delirio. We have approvals for a few projects in Brooklyn. We have approvals in Queens. So again, Eva, I'm more than happy to participate in a meeting to dive into this topic. And yeah, I appreciate the invitation.
Can you give us the data for 1515 project distribution? Because we know you're putting supportive housing project in other districts, but are they for people with severe mental health issue, or are they for seniors? Or are they for homeless families?
No,
right?
when we talk about supportive housing is individuals and families that are suffering from mental issues, substance abuse, and many other like issues that affect them.
Right.
You
So
know.
let's bring in homeless families. Why are you setting aside all 99 units for single individual in this project? Just like Prospero Hall and Schaefer Hall. Let's bring in homeless
sorry.
who need help.
Eva, again, I think we're going in circles. Again, we're going to continue making. We're more than happy to participate in a meeting to address this. There is a need citywide.
Excuse me. This,
John.
Would you mind having this discussion offline, please? We'd like to continue with the meeting. There are other people that would like to ask questions. So if you would. Could you exchange information, please? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Candy?
My question is, the 1515 program on funding that you're going for, is that because of funding gaps, to fill the funding gaps, and it's the reason why you're going for those fundings? Because we do have seniors, a lot of seniors. I'm a housing ambassador with HPD, partnered up, and doing that housing connect, a lot of seniors have been displaced, and we have a big. So I understand everybody has to be placed somewhere, and so we just need to split this up a little bit more. And I understand where Eva's coming from, and I also understand that we have to be sensitive for the people who are chronically mentally ill. But in East Harlem, we do have a lot, and I know a lot of people are a lot of NIMBYs, and we're a lot of YIMBYs, and we just got to split it up. But I just want to know if you're going for that 1515 because of you need to have some funding, and you may have a funding gap, and so you're going to go for those dollars. And I just want to know if that's what you're going to do, or if that's the case, this is the reason why you're having a 1515.
Hey, Candy, I'll try to answer your question. Financing affordable housing. I'm not sure if you have heard me say this before, but financing affordable housing is really a balancing act where we need to really try to bring as many resources as we can to make this affordable housing happen. In that effort, projects that are financed under ELA have to compete for resources with a lot of other projects. So any source of funding that we can bring in to help us make this happen is welcome. And if you're correct, the 1515 program comes with an extra source of income for the project, not only for the project, but also for the potential tenants of the building. The tenants will be subject to, or will be receiving a subsidy. So the tenants will not be paying more than 30% of any income that they're making. So all of that, all the resources that we can leverage to help us finance this project will be used. And among of them is this 1515 program. Related to the very important topic or element that you mentioned in when raising your question, Candy, was like the senior housing. I think it's very important to highlight that we are very aware that there is a huge need for senior housing, not only here, but again, citywide. In that effort, we're working with other folks in CB11 to bring senior housing. There is going to be a project that is going to come to you guys in the future. You probably are aware at this point. Is with an entity that you are very familiar with, Ascendant Development Neighborhood.
That's only a little bit of apartments. That's only just like a certain amount of units. And when you look at how you're dividing the units, because that's also the unit distribution has a lot to do with that, as well as how much the community is actually going to benefit out of that. Because I know that we're going to have the 50% of the of the community preference. But let's say you only have 3 apartments that is going to be affordable for the seniors. Where do you fit those 50% in?
Well,
and then it's going to be for the seniors, you know, because I look at the unit distributions and I also look at how much it could be at $28,000, right? Because I am aware, I am a housing provider. I've developed before, but I'm just trying to say is, you know, so there's many different hats, but it's just for the fairness of all, because like I said, I'm on this board for the community, not just for myself. But what I'm trying to say is, Mr. Cortez, is just that if that's what you needed for the funding gap, you already answered that. And I did. Okay, and I just find that I think that it compromises our community for too much, because that means we're not being heard. Everyone is trying to find a place to live, and especially you got talented artists. Tell us that you're gonna give us a lot of talented artists to go live in there, like Art Space. And even then, a lot of people stood out, and there's probably a long wait list because they can't get in, whether they're seniors, youth, or adults, you know, but it's still fairness and it's balancing out. You know, I don't understand how much of a balancement are you going to give out of that 1515 program, individuals that are going to benefit out of that, coming from the shelter or clinic or hospital or something. I don't know. You know, that needs to be, you know, be transparent about it, so like that you don't have the community upset and asking questions over and over, like you feel like everybody's going in circles. But the circle is that there's no transparency, and you really need to do that. And I'm just saying that, not to badge at you, not to fight with you or anything like that. I'm just being honest.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused now.
If it's okay, I did just want to make a general statement about financing and HPDs, that regardless, the development team would have to provide 15% of like units for formerly homeless individuals without any services, and 1515 lets us also provide services to those individuals. So the equation does turn out for a better situation of having residents with services.
Right, but with the financing, it's a choice. You can choose to have that as a financing or not. I'm just asking if that was the reason why you did that. That was it.
And Candy, I think, one more thing. I think the example of the other project that I was mentioning is to help help make the case that there are other things happening for the community. We are trying to work with every resource that we have, not only city owned, but also privately owned, or a combination of both, right? To try to address some of the needs that we have heard from the community. So we heard senior housing. We're working with an entity that actively works in the community to bring more than a few senior housing units. And the other thing that I want to highlight, perfectly how you said, most of the projects, all the projects are subject to the 50% community board preference. My message always is, work with the entities that are going to be responsible for the marketing process, because nothing stops from that 50% to become a 60%, 70%, 90%. Depends a lot on the strategies that entities put in place to guarantee that members of the community apply and seek those units. So again, the commitment from us is to continue engaging with you guys, to continue working with you, to polish those strategies to really help the community to get those units. So this is a conversation. We'll continue with this. Again, we're more than happy to continue having this engagement with you guys, Candy.
Yes, Mr. Cortez and Candy, please exchange information and have this conversation offline, please. There are a few people left that want to ask questions. Please, and you're going to ask you, but please be direct and be on topic and be brief. Beverly?
Thank you.
Yes,
I
which
don't
Beverly
wanna-
you talking about? Beverly
yes.
McFarland?
Yes, which Beverly?
I'm sorry, Ms. Beverly. Hold on. I'll get you.
Okay. Yes. Just to talk about the supportive housing, the two questions I had. When I'm looking at the information regarding supportive housing, you have supportive housing for different entities of people, different types of people. One of them being drugs, which is a substance abuse, which is like Ms. Chan and others have spoke is like rampant in our area, where we have more programs for drug people who have substance abuse, but you also have homelessness and people with disabilities and mental health. So in regards to the supportive housing, if it can be more that we don't take it anymore, or very limited amount of people with substance abuse, and we apply these housing to people for homelessness and people with disabilities and mental health. I think that would be something that should be worked out within the community. The only building I know that has a building where it's 100% people with disabilities is the project on 126th Street, Milltweed. And that whole building is just for people, it's supportive housing, but it's for people with physical disabilities and some type of disabilities, and not someone with substance abuse. So I think what we would like to see when it comes to supportive housing, that is not necessarily a majority of the supportive housing for substance abuse, because we are inundated already in our community with that type of services. And you know, it's like they said, it's not being spread around the whole this whole city. You know, everything's just being done more so here regarding substance abuse. And we've been taking our fair share. So when it comes to supportive housing, just support other supportive houses besides or very limited substance abuse for the supportive houses and the services that would come with it. And that's my statement.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Noda?
Hi, thank you. I have a few statements and a few questions. So
Please
one
be
thing that
direct
I
and
wanted
be brief,
to,
please.
yes. So I was
direct and be
curious if more units can be, if there can be an increase of units so that the 2 and 3 bedrooms equal something more in the range of 60%. And I'm coming from a viewpoint of what I feel our community really needs, which is family housing. And then, as some other people have stated before me, the elderly housing issue, I think, is also something that this community is very in need of. And I know we have, you know, a favor in the lottery to people that already live here, but I'm curious if at least like we can put some regulations in place with that, so that say 50% of the 1 bedrooms be dedicated as elderly housing, and maybe like 25% of the studios, because elderly housing is a very big need in this community. And these are people who have lived in this community for years and years. And I think in the coming years, it's going to be a big struggle as people become priced out of the market here. And then my other question is about some indoor play spaces for children, since obviously at least part of this is 2 and 3 bedrooms and focused on families. Are there any indoor play spaces included for children who live in the building? And also, is there an outdoor playground play area included for those families? And then finally, my last question would be about the possibility of having either dedicated living space for artists and or dedicated workspace for artists. So a lack of artist workspace is actually a huge issue here in East Harlem. We have many, many artists, and we definitely lack affordable spaces for artists to work. So I'm wondering if that could even be something that could be part of this proposal. That's all I have.
Sarah, oh, sorry, John. Oh, well, thank you for your comment. I can take the first part. So as it currently stands, the project underwriting has been achieved via negotiations between HPD and the developer. So this is what the current unit mix is to make sure that the project is an optimal use of public resources. As for the play areas and the artist co-working space, maybe Michelle or Diane could speak a little bit about this.
Sure. For the play areas, I can also tap George Chang here. He's our architect for the project. We do have outdoor spaces. We're still very much in the process of fleshing everything out. That's definitely something that we can take into account.
Hi, hi. This is George Chang from Urban Architectural Initiatives. We're the architects designing the building. We are absolutely looking at indoor recreational spaces for children, actually off of the third floor terrace. So if it's raining outside, kids it's still in design in terms of whether it's a library or a little recreational space, but there are some flex spaces that we can program for kids. And in addition to that, there's actually going to be 2 community rooms that can combine into a single community room, and those will probably be programmed for events as well as for tenant use. So there's going to be ample area, amenity space for programming, for recreation, for fitness, and so yeah, I think that there'll definitely be places for kids to play within the building.
Thank you very much. Mr. McFarland?
Yes. I don't want to be repetitious because actually, I believe the speaker Wu had already addressed 90% of the issues that I was, the saturation of affordable, supportive housing for this kind of population is already it's just too much in our community. And also, the AMI is just ridiculous in terms of for this community. I mean, when you look at the climate of this community, starting at 88% AMI, I don't think is not really conducive for our community. That should be looked at, especially in supportive housing. And the last thing I want to ask is, if you said this project is going to be on where the 25th precinct parking lot? Is this existing now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's currently a parking lot.
Okay, so now where all these cars is going to go? So now you're inundated with all these police vehicles. Is there somewhere that you're going to support this or work with the police department in that aspect? Because now really we're going to have more issues in terms of transport, people trying to get in and out that block, because now they don't have anywhere to park these vehicles, employee vehicles, as well as cop cars. So I'm kind of, are y'all working with that police, 25th precinct in terms of that? I don't know what kind of good neighbors are y'all with them.
Yeah. Go ahead, Agatha.
To answer your question regarding the parking, HPD will be coordinating with the 25th precinct to find a lot with replacement parking closer to the project's construction. So we will be finding some parking spots for those existing cop cars as opposed to just street parking.
But that Agatha is during construction. The project itself includes replacement parking in the building, the ground floor and the second floor for the local precinct.
Is that for the police department? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. But again, yeah, I think you'll need to look at that AMI.
Thank you. Last two questions, Ms. Condon, followed by Ms. Lawless.
Really quickly, you mentioned that 100 of those 340 units would be Ella apartments. What percentage of that 100 will be 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds?
Oh, so all of the 341 units will be financed through Ella. And sorry, just to bring back, so your question is how many 1 bedrooms are there?
You said that there were 100 apartments that were, maybe you said set aside or preference for the community. What was the 100 units figure for?
So I think what you saw is 99 units are planned for supportive units, and of the community units, 241, 50% of those units would be for community preference.
Okay, just one thing, I would strongly urge you to consider using the language of set aside and not preference. There's a difference because set aside means that that 240 figure has to go to that community.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lawless.
Hi. So we recently had a block party on 117th Street, 2 blocks from the precinct, and we spoke with the new captain of the 25th precinct, Captain Maisonette. He feels outnumbered, underfunded, and understaffed really to deal with the constant illegal activity coming from Prospero and Schaefer Hall. They just put migrants in at 110th Street, the old prison off Park Avenue. On Point, the drug den is across the street from a nursery school for Black and Hispanic children. We can't afford 100 more mentally ill, vulnerable people in this area. And what we discovered is that Lantern is not a WMBE, it's not Black owned, it's not women owned. They are not local, they're from Queens. What we see that Lantern is doing is they are putting vulnerable people not desired in their own neighborhoods in Queens, putting them in Black and Hispanic and Asian neighborhoods that are already overfilled. So we need that addressed directly. We don't want to talk about ongoing conversations. We need it addressed promptly, clearly, specifically. It's not acceptable. We can't afford any more. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming tonight and for providing this presentation to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
For having us.
Thank you so much, members of the community board and the housing committee. Always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you so much. Let us continue because I don't want to impose on your time, members of the committee, any more than I have to. Okay.
Have a great evening, folks. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thank you. What's the next, Marlene? Okay, informational update in reference to the East Harlem El Barrio Community Land Trust, CLT. Athena Brinkoff, are you here?
I am here. One
Yes,
moment.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Can everyone see the presentation okay?
I can.
Okay. Great. So good evening, everyone. I apologize. I also have a little tickle in my throat with all that's going on in the air right now. So I appreciate everyone's patience with me. My name is Athena Burnkoff. I'm the project director at the East Harlem and Barrio Community Land Trust. My pronouns are they and them. And I'm here just to give an update on this current project. We've actually presented to this committee a few times before, but it's been some time, and figure that we are due for an update to check in with you all. And because there are likely a bunch of folks who are not familiar with the East Harlem and Barrio Community Land Trust, I'm also going to do my best to give some background on the project. So that y'all have a sense of what exactly it is, besides just giving you the quick update on where we're at currently with it. So I'll keep it moving. Also having troubles with my computer. So first, I always find it helpful to do a super brief description of what is a community land trust. This is a very fast version of how we define it. But essentially, a community land trust is a nonprofit organization that it owns land and works to ensure that it is used in ways that benefit community. Community land trusts typically lease land to community organizations that have buildings that serve community in some way. And oftentimes the intention is that land ownership and building ownership is to be maintained separate to allow for added community oversight and further mechanisms for community members to be in stewardship of both the land and the buildings. Conventionally, the way that stewardship is operated on between land and building ownership is through a 99-year ground lease, which also sets the terms of affordability. In the case of, for example, a housing-based organization that owns buildings will protect the affordability of those buildings on community land trust land to ensure affordability into the long-term future. And then finally, the community piece of a community land trust is usually activated through the community land trust tripartite board, which conventionally looks like a third of the board of director seats are reserved for people who live on buildings that are on community land trust land. Another third is reserved for people who have some other form of meaningful relationship to the community where the community land trust operates. And then the final third is reserved for folks who have some sort of meaningful experience or expertise to serve the mission of the community land trust. So for example, that can be community organizers or housing developers or researchers or doctors, folks who have meaningful relationships to community, but that serve the larger mission of the community land trust. And I'm going to try to move through the presentation first, and then of course we'll make myself available for questions for as long as y'all will have me. So who are we? So the East Harlem and Barrio Community Land Trust, our mission is to fight and build tenant and community power to develop and preserve deeply and permanently affordable housing, commercial, green, and cultural spaces in East and Central Harlem. We center those who are most impacted by New York's housing crisis, including BIPOC and immigrant communities, people experiencing homelessness, and extremely low income households. And in our current project, which I'll go into more detail on, we partner with the East Harlem and Barrio Mutual Housing Association to ensure community stewardship of land and democratic resident-controlled housing. So first, a super brief description of our history. East Harlem and Barrio Community Land Trust grew out of an organization called Picture the Homeless, which was created by and for people who are houseless, who are looking at the outrageous homelessness population throughout New York City and calling out the disparity between how many folks were left houseless on any given night and the amount of properties, either buildings or lots, left empty that could be used meaningfully towards housing folks who are houseless. And so through a combination of organizing tactics, and participatory action research projects, Picture the Homeless and Allies, and specifically members of the larger coalition called the New York City Community Land Initiative, looked at community land trusts as a model that could leverage vacant properties and buildings or underutilized properties and buildings for the purpose of housing houseless folks or some other meaningful community use. Of course, our focus is specifically on housing in our project. However, community land trusts can be used for a variety of reasons, either for preserving or creating cultural spaces, community organizing spaces, green spaces, cooperative businesses, anything along those lines. And East Harlem and Barrio Community Land Trust specifically grew out of the Community Land Initiative Coalition as a pilot project to examine what would a new community land trust look like in our current times, and this being in the early 2010s, mid 2010s, after New York City has only one large, active, and ongoing community land trust, which is Cooper Square, which operates in the Lower East Side. So we were incorporated in 2014, and after much organizing and a lot of forums dedicated to getting community feedback on what community members wanted to see a community land trust used to do. The resounding feedback was, of course, housing is the most urgent priority, and specifically deeply affordable housing. And that's what East Harlem and Barrio CLT turned its attention to. And then finally, in November of 2020, East Harlem and Barrio CLT acquired its first 4 buildings that are brought onto the CLT's land. And so here you have a map of the buildings that are part of our current project. All of these are formerly city-owned rental buildings, rental residential buildings, all of which were acquired by the city mostly in the 80s, mostly through foreclosure processes, and that were in various states of disrepair, likely at the time that the city acquired the buildings, but of course were, well, not of course, but were significantly neglected while they were in city ownership, and since have deteriorated to various states. So 2 of these buildings have been partially occupied over time. That would be 204 West 121st Street and 304 East 126th Street. The other 2 buildings, 53 East 110th and 201 East 120th, were in such bad conditions that they've been vacant for over a decade. In some cases, 53 East 110th Street actually has residents attached to those buildings, but they were relocated over a decade ago, promised that they would be returned back to their homes after repairs were done, and that promise was never fulfilled by the city. And so the city identified these specific properties to be brought onto the CLT for $1 a piece. However, part of the deal is that we had to rehabilitate all 4 buildings. And what that looks like for 3 of the 4 buildings is a gut rehab. And one of the 4 buildings is still an extensive rehabilitation, not quite a gut rehab, but 3 of the 4, everything, essentially everything but the bones of the buildings are being completely rehabilitated. And that's the process we're currently in now. We started the construction process or the rehab process on 2 of the 4 buildings initially, after we acquired the properties in November of 2020, and have since been in that construction process, although it has been significantly delayed by the pandemic and other bureaucratic challenges. As I mentioned before, 2 of the buildings are partially occupied, and so we've been working with residents of those buildings to build out the collective governance structure of the entity that owns the buildings, which I'll get into now. So some details about the ownership structure specifically of the properties. And as I mentioned earlier, it is conventional for community land trusts, especially housing-focused land trusts, to own the land and then lease the buildings on the land out to a separate entity. And in the case of our project, we have partnered with 2 nonprofit developers, Banana Kelly Community Improvement Association and Catch, to create a separate entity called the East Harlem and Barrio Mutual Housing Association that is owned, that owns the buildings that are on the CLT land. So the East Harlem and Barrio Mutual Housing Association, or the MHA for short, is the entity that owns the 4 buildings that you just saw on the map prior, while the CLT owns the land that is beneath those 4 buildings. Currently, while we are in rehabilitation, you'll see this note at the bottom, we have what is a temporary board distribution for the Mutual Housing Association, which is that Banana Kelly and Catch, both as the developers and managers for the project, as the buildings are under rehabilitation, hold the majority of the board of director seats of the Mutual Housing Association, while the CLT holds the final seat of the total 5 seats that currently make up the structure of the Mutual Housing Association Board of Directors. However, this is a setup just created for the rehabilitation process, and there are various reasons as to why that was implemented. But what you see in the majority of the slide is actually the intended structure and what will become the permanent structure of this project once rehabilitation is completed. And so on the top, again, you have the Mutual Housing Association, which owns the 4 buildings that are part of the project. And once rehabilitation and construction is completed, tenants will make up a majority of the 7 board seats that will make up the Mutual Housing Association. And that will be essentially in practice, probably look like 1 tenant per building representing their buildings on the Mutual Housing Association Board of Directors. And then the community organizations that are part of the project, that being East Harlem and Barrio CLT, and then our developer partners, Banana Kelly and Catch, will each hold 1 seat on the board of directors and will make up a minority, with the practice that we're there to support both the residents that are on the board, residents that make up residency in the Mutual Housing Association, and then the larger community. And then below, you'll see the distribution of board seats for the Community Land Trust, which is the organization I represent here tonight. And that, again, is the tripartite board. And we're currently more in alignment with this distribution here, where community members and community members of either East Harlem or neighborhoods uptown make up the majority of the board of the Community Land Trusts. Yeah, so I'll keep it moving. So here is a breakdown of the overall units and the rents in across the 4 buildings in the project. So for clarity, the 4 buildings will, after construction, include 38 residential units. There are currently 36 residential units, but 2 units will be added once construction is completed. All of the units will be rent stabilized. And as I mentioned, there are currently about just under half of the projects, a little bit under half of the units are set at 35% AMI. So you'll see that what those units look like here. For 2 bedrooms, it's around $770. For 3 bedrooms, that's $883. And then the final units, 22 vacant units will be set at 100% AMI, which is between $1,700 and $2,600 per month. 4 of those vacant units are being reserved as what are called homeless set-asides, which are reserved for families that are coming out of the city's shelter system. And it should be noted that all of these vacant units will be subject to the city's lottery process through Housing Connect, which is mandated as the type of project that we are, being a affordable housing project that is subsidized by the city. Something else to note is that because we had to take on significant debt to be able to finance the immense amount of rehabilitations across these 4 buildings, we're looking at about $13 million needed for the rehab process for just these 4 buildings. That did include raising the rents from the rent levels that the currently occupying residents have been paying. So you'll see this in the second to last column here, the current rents. And then the vacant units, which you'll see on the bottom here on the furthest right column, were set significantly higher than the rents of the currently occupied units. And that was essentially to allow us to establish a sustainable financial structure for the project. Because the debt, the condition of the buildings required us to do the rehab required us to take on debt, and then the debt required us to raise the rents on some of the units to be able to pay back the debt service for the buildings. Definitely an unfortunate consequence of deteriorated buildings that were formerly in city ownership, and that cost has essentially been offloaded to us as a community group to be able to bring those buildings to a livable condition, and not just livable, but good quality condition. That being said, those 14 units that are set at 35% AMI, as I'm sure you all are aware, are significantly lower than most of the rents that you'll find here. And these are not supportive housing. These are just for folks who just have been living in these buildings. And oftentimes, in most cases, the residents of the currently 14 occupied units have been in these buildings for a decade or longer. So these are long-term East Harlem residents, in some cases, people who've grown up in the neighborhood their entire lives, and who, while they did see a rent increase, will be able to stay in their homes with lower rents and various types of support as we can try to connect them with rental subsidies through city agencies and our partner organizations. So here are some kind of pictures of what some of the units look like after construction. This is our current phase. As I mentioned earlier, we're currently in the rehabilitation process of the 4 buildings. We started with the 2 vacant buildings with the expectation that once these 2 vacant buildings are completed, we'll be able to move the residents of the currently occupied units temporarily to the newly rehabbed units so that we can begin on the second set of buildings. Once the second set of buildings are completed, we'll move residents back to their permanent units and then begin filling the units, the vacant units, through the city's housing lottery. We have been in this process for some time. As I mentioned, we started not long after acquiring the properties in November of 2020, and the pandemic saw us experiencing significant delays, which have been really frustrating to the residents themselves, who have been counting on a timeline for construction to be able to get the rehab needed in their buildings and then be able to move back officially and permanently to their permanent units. One of the, so the current status is that construction is actually done on the first 2 buildings that are under construction. We are waiting for various inspections by different city departments and to get an approval on our applications for temporary certifications of occupancy so that we can relocate residents temporarily and begin on the second phase of development. And so while we are in the rehabilitation process, we've also been doing extensive leadership development and trainings with residents, with the expectation that if we are asking residents to be in collective management and stewardship of their buildings, that we need to equip people with the meaningful skills and foundational knowledge related to that, other than just throwing folks into management with no experience and no understanding of what that actually means. In addition to that, we've also been seeking out resources that can help us deepen the affordability of those 22 or technically the 18 units that are set at 100% AMI that are not homeless set-asides, with the expectation is that as much as you know, a 2 or 3 bedroom going between $1,700 or $2,800 is significantly cheaper than the average rent in the city at the moment, it's also still unaffordable to the majority of folks who live in East Harlem and the surrounding areas. And we're committed to trying to find resources that allow us to deepen the affordability of those units and make them more accessible. And then finally, we are also meaningfully engaged in citywide advocacy to create pathways for our community land trust to grow and continue to meet our mission, as well as to support other community land trusts in the forms of social housing across the city, which is why I mentioned a rally that I spoke to you all a bit earlier today. So this is the same flyer that I was mentioning, and I actually managed to find a way to share that with you all in the chat. So I'll make sure to send this image, the rally for CLTs, in the chat after my presentation. You can also find more information about the bill package referenced here, the Community Land Act, at this website at the bottom here, nicely, or the New York City Community Land Initiative, or nicely for short, is the organizing coalition that is coordinating this advocacy. And just briefly, the Community Land Act is a bill package of 4 different legislative proposals or bills that we think will strengthen the possibility for social housing and community and tenant controlled housing throughout the city. So that includes Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, which would allow privately owned buildings that are going for sale to be first offered for sale to the residents that live in those buildings. The Public Land for Public Good Act would prioritize community land trusts and other mission-driven nonprofits for any publicly owned land that's being dispersed by the city. We are asking City Council to adopt a resolution to support TOPA, or the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is essentially the state level version of the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. And finally, we are aiming to abolish the New York City tax lien sale, knowing that it has been extremely exploitative and extractive of community owned or family owned housing who are just trying to stay in their homes, but have found themselves targeted for various liens that have propelled mostly communities, working class communities of color, to foreclosure and other forms of housing insecurity and displacement. So that's the fast version. And then finally, we're hoping to hold an event inviting community members to just come speak with us about housing and community land trust in general in East Harlem. And so there's a form for folks to sign up. I'll also put it in the chat after my presentation once I close the screen. But just want to give a little plug here that we really want to take more time to meet with community members. We are a tiny organization. I'm a staff of one currently, and we're doing the best we can to maintain this work and project and mission. And we really desperately want to be in connection and in collaboration with community members. And we're hoping that folks will join us to start talking about what that could look like. So thanks, y'all. I'm not sure if I should keep sharing my screen in case there are slides that folks want to revisit again, but I would love to take any questions, as I'm sure folks have a bunch.
Thank you, Athena, for the presentation. Candy, I see your hand is up. Keep it brief and keep it on topic, please.
Okay, it's two things, and it's on topic. One, I don't know if you spoke, since you said it very fast, about who you have on your community land trust, because I remember about the community land trust when it first initially started meeting at the community board, and it was like more than 13 years ago. So I just want to know, are the one of the originals members that started, because it was some other community-based organizations that were included in the meeting. Are there the East Harlem Community Land Trust? How many people are from the community of East Harlem, not out of East Harlem? I'm more concerned about how many are from East Harlem, because I would prefer to see more support on, if anyone is going to be having jurisdiction over East Harlem's properties, it would be best to see that it's people from East Harlem, and every district should have their own, every community, whether it's Lower East Side to the Bronx or East Harlem. I think that those committee people, it should just be based on individuals who have a stake at, and an interest of East Harlem, and that they're Harlemites, did I hear that right, or did I hear that wrong?
No, you did hear that right. I didn't go into detail on our current board membership, but we currently have 8 board members. 4 of those board members are people who live in East Harlem. 2 of the other board members are folks who live in Harlem or uptown, and then the final 2 are folks who do not live in Harlem, but are members of Picture the Homeless, the organization that was formerly based in East Harlem, and that started this whole community land trust project, as well as been really spearheading the larger community land trust movement across the city. So I am, in terms of the original folks, as you might imagine, it's been a long time that this has been in formation, and a bunch of the initial board members that were part of those meetings that likely you're part of long before I was part of the CLT termed out of the board because we do have a maximum of 6 consecutive years on the board of directors. We do have 1 board member who was part of, I think, maybe the 2nd iteration of the board, who is also an East Harlem, lifelong East Harlem resident, who is recently came back to the board after a year-long break from the board. And then I think it was maybe a year or 2 ago, we did do some recruitment for the board, and specifically sent around our recruitment application to this community board, which I believe was circulated around. And it's only in the past few months that we added 4 new board members, 3 of which came from East Harlem themselves.
All right, like I said, it'll be much better, more preferable that way. It will look more fitting and more benefiting that is saying East Harlem Community Land Trust, it's my reserve on it. But moving forward, I would like to see, or at least give us a list for transparency. Who are the individuals that you do have and out of our community, who is really, from community board, from the East Harlem? The other thing is that, I was hearing you talking about that you need to get more funding. And I don't know if you've ever gone into, right now, there's a lot of funding, state funds, in order for housing development. Maybe you may want to look into that. And there is a lot of money for that. There is funding for development for that, affordable housing. So you just may want to tap into those funds, look at those RFPs that are out there right now, especially since the budget has been released. And that can be helpful, not just with city money, but you can also balance it out with state funds as well. And it's just a suggestion.
No, I really appreciate that suggestion. And we recently actually looked at funding source from HCR at the state level, and it was found that it was suggested that maybe it wouldn't be compatible with the project, that we wouldn't qualify in some way.
That's not true.
That's what we've been told by different city agencies, potentially. So we
Read
continue
it
to
yourself, you'll see.
Trust me, that's what I've spent a lot of time doing, because we're committed to deepening the affordability, and it's means doing that research on what resources are available. But I appreciate the suggestion. We're definitely going to keep out looking other funding sources, especially the state, because I agree there's more resources that are becoming available at the moment, and they should be dedicated to projects like ours that are specifically targeting people who need housing the most. So thank you for that.
Yes, but I would like to see more people. I would feel more comfortable knowing that the community land trust, if it's a trust, that it belongs to the people that live within our community, not someone from outside, no one that is vested from another borough, another neighborhood. That doesn't make it East Harlem. That's all.
I hear that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Pabon, on topic and brief, please.
Yes, thank you, Athena, for the presentation. I know you've been here before. My question's being quick. One, where is the funding coming from for these projects? The reason why I'm asking is because you have two buildings that's from the TIL program, which I'm an advocate for, is from the TIL. One is occupied, one was vacant for decades. The city has reneged on the TIL program significantly. And that's one of the reasons why you were able to get these two buildings from the TIL program. So when I'm asking regarding to help with the affordability, because like you said, the 22 apartments that you have is going to be 100% AMI. I wanted to know whether the residents that are that's occupying these properties now, and you just don't have two buildings that's occupied, would they be able to get these apartments under the lower rent, or would they be open to getting the apartments under the 100% AMI? Because especially for the ones that's from the TIL buildings, I think that lower rent should be automatic for them because of what they've been going through. In regards to that and the funding, I want to know whether or not you were able to work, I think asked last time, the J51, so y'all can have some type of tax rates in order to be more affordable and bring it down even the 100% AMI a bit lower for people in our community that will be able to afford these apartments when they come online. Yeah, those are my two main questions for now. Thank you. And can you please send the presentation to Community Board 11?
Sure. So to answer your first question, funding comes from two specific streams. The bigger chunk of funding, about $7 million, comes from HBD itself. And that is a forgivable loan, assuming that we meet all the terms of the 40-year regulatory agreement. The second chunk of funding around $5 million is from the Community Preservation Corporation, which is a nonprofit lending institution that is not a forgivable loan. And that's where the debt that I mentioned earlier came from. And that's the debt that we have to pay back, which led to increasing the rents of some of those units to 100% AMI. To answer your second question, all of the current units, so anybody who's currently living in one of these buildings there or is attached to one of the buildings in some way, for example, residents of 53 East 110 who haven't been able to live in their building for over a decade, but are still connected to that building, all of those residents have their rent set at 35% AMI. So with that explicit reason of that they've been living in these buildings for a extremely long time. They had been made promises by the city that they would see rehab done, they would get the repairs done, and then set on a path to ownership. And then the city never fulfilled that promise. And so I think the compromise that the city landed on, which is not even what we wanted all of these units to be set at 35% AMI or somewhere along those lines. But the compromise that the city gave us was that any current resident would pay 35% AMI, despite the fact that that is a rent increase for most of them, or all of them really, but was found necessary given the debt service that the project had to take on because of the rehabilitation that was needed. The CPC's loan, like I said, is not forgivable. We do have to pay it back, and it's expected to be financed through the rent set at the 100% AMI units. I think those answer your question. Did I miss something?
Yeah, and in regards to the 35% that with the AMI, since you don't, the J51, I was wondering whether you was getting that, and in regards to also when you mentioned the loan from HPD is forgivable, how you have to do 40 years before the loan is forgivable, but are you paying them back during those 40 years?
So we do not have J51. What we do have is an Article 11 tax exemption. So we're not paying property taxes on the properties. For the forgivable loan, we are not paying interest or making any payments on the loan from HPD. We do have to make payments on the loan from the Community Preservation Corporation, CPC, which is the debt that we have to service. We have to pay back essentially.
And that's all coming from the 100% AMI and also
it's
from
offset.
the 35%?
It's offset for the most part by the units set at 100% AMI. Something that I apologize, I did miss saying is that it's mentioned here in this map, but there are across the 4 buildings, 3 community spaces and commercial spaces. So some of the commercial rent will also offset some of the debt for the project. I see in a question here, oh, thank you for your questions. I see in the chat, excuse me, a question from Tiffany Khan about which of the buildings, which of these were, if research was done to see which was in the TIL program. And as you'll see here, it was these 2 buildings, 304 East 126th Street and 53 East 110th Street that were specifically in the TIL program. The other 2 buildings weren't programmed, but to my understanding, and again, this is before I arrived on the scene, those units were not programmed, but they were run by the TIL program. So they weren't in a specific city subsidized program, but they were managed through the city's TIL department.
Interesting.
You have?
Say that again?
Beverly, is that it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Athena. Thank you very much.
Okay, last question, Ms. Chan.
Hi, sorry, having technical difficulty. I've been always complaining about the fact that supportive housing only allows 50% of the housing to be set aside to local East Harlem residents. And then I've been told that the land trust can help set aside more units for local Harlem residents. Is that true?
I appreciate that question, and it has a complicated answer. So this project was initially started specifically because we wanted to prevent the displacement, or wanted to give people who had already been displaced the opportunity to return to East Harlem if they had been displaced. When we started this project, we asked for community preference to be applied to the project, and we were told that because some of the units are already occupied, that fulfills the quota for community preference, and the other units could not be subject to community preference. In addition, because it is a city subsidized project, it is required that all of the units go through the city's Housing Connect system. With the exception of those 4 homeless set-asides, which will be referrals from the city's PATH or the shelter system. We're still trying to think of like ways of how do we navigate this requirement that it has to go through the city's system and still try to meet our goal to use these units to prevent displacement or to support people who have already been displaced. And what we're thinking of right now, although this won't come into effect until when we're closer to completion for the construction of the buildings, is how do we implement a more grassroots marketing process? So Housing Connect has certain rules about how the vacant units and the opportunities via Housing Connect are broadcasted, made publicly known, shared with the community. And our goal is essentially to get people on the ground and try to increase the amount of applicants from within East Harlem. So that's not to say that anybody from within East Harlem will be given priority for any of those units, but if we increase the amount of people who are applying from East Harlem, then we can hopefully increase the likelihood that someone from East Harlem will get these, will have access to these units or be approved for these units through the Housing Connect system. That being said, we've also been talking internally within the larger coalition that we're a part of, what sort of policy advocacy do we need to be looking at that would allow us to fulfill our anti-displacement goals? Is it something along the lines of we want to challenge the city's or HPD's reliance on Housing Connect, which we've talked about, but also recognize that we do need some sort of oversight for how these units are being made available, right? Because it's not just, we don't want anybody just, giving these units away to family members who maybe don't have any relationship or history with East Harlem either, but simply to find a more effective system that's more in alignment with our mission, but that also allows for us to be equitable in the way that they're dispersed. And frankly, it's a challenging problem. And we definitely would love to hear from community members about what y'all think that should look like. And if, hopefully if you are interested in joining the call that we would like to have, and actually, I'm gonna stop my share so that I can put this in the chat. But to invite community members to be in an informal meeting with us to talk about what feels most urgent as it comes to housing and CLTs in Harlem, and specifically East Harlem. And if that becomes the topic that folks want to focus on, then by all means, we would love to be in conversation with you all about it. That was probably less of an answer than you would have liked, Ava, but I hope at least gave you information about where things are at with the CLT in regards to resident selection.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, Athena, thank you very much for your presentation. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I guess there are no more questions.
No, I don't see any. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you all. And I just put the sign up sheet for community meeting in the chat. Really would love for folks to sign up and join us. And then I'll also be putting in the information, or the link rather, to the flyer that was on the presentation for you all to access. And looking forward to meeting with you all soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, continuing on. Okay, presentation in reference to HPD's Home First Down Payment Assistance Program and the barriers towards ownership. Metropolitan Council on Housing is requesting a letter of support for the Community Board's for CB9's resolution, which states the problems with the Home First Down Payment Assistance Program. Ms. Khan?
Good evening. Thanks everyone for letting me attend and to speak on this issue. And just to clarify, I am a board member of the Met Council on Housing. However, I am not speaking on behalf of the council. I'm speaking, all opinions and everything that I'm presenting tonight are my own views. I also serve as a community board member, West Harlem CB9 for a while, as a public member, then as a board member, and now public member again. Housing is an issue that is very, very important to me in many ways, and all forms of housing, from affordable co-ops to rentals to, and what I'm focusing on today is the private ownership, which is a problem predominantly for Black and Brown communities. There is a decline of home ownership for Black and Brown families across the nation, but especially here in New York. How can I share my screen so I don't have, is there a way to enable screen sharing?
There should be.
You can share your screen now.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is a resolution that I wrote about the HPD Home First Down Payment Assistance Program. The program, so just a little bit of background. In the reso, I talk about how housing is a major priority across the city. We all know we're experiencing an affordability crisis that has gotten worse in the last 50+ years. By the way, I'm going to share the link for this in the chat. All of the sources that I used to write this resolution are here in the footnotes. So just briefly, we have a crisis nationwide since 1970. The 1970s, the middle class is shrinking, and home ownership is the primary way that the middle class builds wealth. If you look at averages, in 2020, for example, the median net value of assets held by American households was largest for real estate assets. It was $336,000 compared to just $5,700 for renters. I'm going to go through this really quickly because I feel like it's almost 9, and you know, you guys can all read this and we can chat about it later on. But just to get to this grant that HPD offers is funded by HUD, and they do it through different municipalities. It offers 20% of the total purchase of the home up to $100,000. But there are a number of problems inherent with the program. Firstly, HUD uses national averages. So income caps are not reflecting New York City realities. They are reflecting American realities. I'm not going to go into all of the problems with the program because I feel like it would be a long laundry list and you lose people. We lose both people here and especially our elected officials. So I decided to target this to just 2 problems that I thought would be easy, quick solutions. The first is the duration. The average time that it takes to go through the program. And by the way, when I say program, I mean the first step in qualifying for this grant, which is also a forgivable loan, is that applicants have to go through a workshop. That workshop can take anywhere from a marathon 1 day to a whole month. And then applicants apply for the grant, but they also are looking for homes. I've heard scenarios where it could take longer than 6 months for an applicant's application to be approved. And we all know in East Harlem, West Harlem, what have you, we have a lot of, for example, trust fund babies, students whose parents are willing to pay all cash for these apartments. Meanwhile, a lot of us are just happy to have a mortgage. And it's very difficult to ask a seller to be willing to give up this all cash deal, and worse, to ask them to wait 4 months, 6 months, or whatever it is for the applicant to get through their, to process their application. So it becomes almost like a chimera, something that's being dangled in front of you, but it's inaccessible. And in a way it hurts the applicants, I think, because, that person might be able to find some other financing, or I don't know. But if they're waiting around for their application to be processed, that, you know, the seller can move on to someone else. So the first thing is this: to demand that HPD cuts the application processing time down to 1 month, I think 2 months at most, because the truth is the documents that they're asking for, you know, W-2 forms, tax returns, these are things that everyone processes. When I say everyone, I mean anyone from a bank to a co-op board. They can process these documents in a matter of days. There's really no reason why it should take months to go through them. The second problem that I think we can resolve collectively is that the application fee is $850. Now, this is a program targeting low to moderate income people. There is no reason why the application should be that high. I had initially said 250. If you see here, I thought that would be sort of the sweet spot that would not anger HPD too much. But some people think it should be 50, which I agree with. I'll let you all decide on that. And lastly, that HPD not disqualify applicants who have already submitted their application but wind up having to close because they're being pressured to close or relinquish, so that HPD allows their application to continue to process. I think I've been speaking for a while, so I'll stop there. But there's a lot to say about this program, and just generally speaking, and this is my last thing, I really hope that everyone here on this call will encourage people of every age, but especially young people, to consider home ownership. There is no stronger way to own your space than to actually own your space, because home ownership is not just about the four walls of your building. It's also about being able to control, for example, or not control, but to play a role in what's happening in the political process. People who are homeowners tend to register to vote, know who their politicians are, press those elected officials for policies that will benefit them, their families, and their community. Whereas when people are more transient, they're less engaged. People who own their spaces tend to also frequent local businesses or start a local business. And also owning your space allows you to do things like start a business or put a child through college. So please, I'm here to also hopefully, I feel like a lot of us act in silos. Listening to you guys talk about some of those developments, we have the same problem in West Harlem, and it's almost as if it were copied and pasted. And so I'm hoping that we can, this could maybe pave the way for more collaboration, because there's so many issues that we would be stronger fighting together. And this, again, homeownership, I can't emphasize enough how, however it is, whether it's a single family home, a co-op, Mitchell Lama, or what have you. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, for your presentation. I have a question.
Yes.
You want support for this resolution. When do you need it?
However soon you can offer it, but I understand that you would need time to review. This is about, it's not that long. It's a page. It's mostly, as you can see, this chart here and footnotes. But if you need time to review it, discuss it, happy to do that.
Yeah, because actually the thing is that basically this is technically our last meeting until September. So because the thing is, if no one is willing to make a motion to write a letter of support right now, it's going to get tabled.
Okay.
So the thing is that that's the one thing. That's why I asked that question. Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee? Let's see. Beverly Papone. I keep forgetting. It's two members.
Yes.
There's two members of the board named Beverly now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tiffany. I agree. Home ownership is dwindling among our people of color, in any neighborhood where we are at. But I'm looking at your application, and although the meeting agenda said that you're asking for support, a letter of support, it doesn't, your application has that you're not asking for a letter of support. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm looking at Tiffany Khan CB9, yeah. And it's, the circle is no. When it's, are you requesting a letter of support? And it's circled as no. So are you just giving us this information for us to think about, and we come back, like we said, this is our last meeting in September, or
So
do we still have time to think about it?
I thought Marlene and I had clarified that on.
Oh,
Monday,
okay.
but there might
I have
been.
my hand raised. I'm sorry. Let me interject. So it's just what happens on the back end in the board office, Beverly. So she,
okay.
Yeah, Tiffany, she incorrectly marked off no. So I contacted her to see what exactly she coming before you all for. And so that's why on your agenda, it said letter of support. So you guys would be ready to know that you might have to go into a vote tonight. So that's why on the agenda, it says request for a letter of support. And this resolution was distributed to you all in that email. You have it.
Yes, it was.
Yes, okay. I just want to clarify that. Thank you so very much. My other question, that you said you're doing this on your own, you're not doing this for CB9. Is that correct? Because you're not a member. What does CB9 has to say about your resolution, and do they support it?
Yes, it was already passed by Community Board 9, and yeah.
Oh, okay. And my last thing is that, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, you finish your statement.
So it was passed unanimously by CB9, Housing, Land Use, Zoning Committee, as well as the General Board back in, I think it was April or May. And then I presented it to CB10. It's gotten very positive feedback from everyone. So I presented it to CB10 and CB12, but it was last minute. For CB10, someone else was supposed to present that night and they canceled. So I just filled in, and it was a very lively, interesting discussion, but it was tabled. For CB12, it was also tabled, but yeah.
Oh, okay. My last thing, I don't know if you're aware, but in, I think in 2017, CB9 did a resolution for home ownership with the TIL program. Are you familiar with the tenant interim lease program, and trying to stop buildings from being transferred into the ANCP program? This, when you said working together, would be something that should be, really considered, because the TIL program is a great program, and it's for people even under 80% of their AMI for home ownership. And like you said, we definitely need it. So I just want to know if you was aware of that, and if they were considering this being a part of the resolution also, to have, the TIL program, I guess, supported and given the opportunities for home ownership, another program of home ownership, instead of the ones that we know about, like the TOPA and stuff like that.
The TOPA and COPA.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, your question is, has the TIL program considered this, or?
No, have y'all considered the TIL program as part of these, I guess, desire for another way for home ownership?
The TIL program was a wonderful program at its inception when it was created in 1978. And this is my personal opinion, by the way, and there's no, it's just, these are just my views. I think the TIL program was amazing in the late 70s to early 80s. However, as landlords corporate real estate investors and many others started to shift their eyes to places like Harlem, Brooklyn, where I'm from, and other neighborhoods that were, quote, undesirable back in the day, we saw this dramatic increase in not only rental, but other quality, cost of living expenses. And so the TIL program, I think, became defunct as a result, right? It was, I think, 2012 when the TIL program effectively ended. This is the reason why buildings like the ones that we just saw presented in that CLT presentation wind up in hands of, the CLT is not that bad. It's actually, it could be wonderful. But sometimes these buildings wind up in the hands of other corporate private owners, which I think is theft, really. I would love to see people across Harlem, the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, file a class action suit to get those buildings back. Because we've seen how Black Wall Street literally robbed of communities. This is another neo form of that theft. So that's just my personal opinion. I don't see how this reso could work with TIL because they're completely separate. And again, because there has been an effort to defund and destroy the few resources that we have, including the TIL program. As far as I know, TIL no longer exists.
Okay, thank you so much.
Candy?
Candy?
Okay, I'll keep it short, nice and sweet, okay?
Thank you.
So, Tiffany, thanks for your presentation and everything. Because I was starting to get confused if it's a resolution that, because I see letter of support and I was looking forward to that. But the resolution, and I'm familiar with this RFP that HPD took out towards this home ownership, which they're really is being funded through HUD, and HPD is the one that is administrating it. There is no admin fees except that you're only getting out of those $850, the organization that would be selected to do the administration for that, there is no admin fee. So therefore, you put all your resources from your own organization, you put your money, you pay your own staff to put all the time into it, because HUD did not release any funding to make sure that there's administrative fees to have staff to work on that. And so the $850 is what goes towards at the closing, is what that organization would get. And it's not the whole $850, it's just half of it. So it's not the whole thing that they will get. And that's the reason why of the $850. So I understand that you're saying to put a cap to that. That will have to be to HUD, not HPD, because it's HUD that's really the one that's submitting those funds to HPD. So I just want to know, because I was kind of confused with your resolution, and I just wanted to have a little bit more clarity on it. I guess I must have lost somehow along the way. Like you said, you'll get long-winded, but I did participate with the presentation, and that was discussed, and someone from EACCI was the one that brought it out, and then that's how HPD turned around and said about the $850 and the admin fees and all that.
Did someone from HCCI? Okay, so just to clarify, I just put in the chat, for those of you who can click within the chat, the link to the program directly from HPD's website. That's the first link. The second link is the term sheet. And I'm actually sharing my screen. Can you all see it? The Zoom sometimes. All right, if you scroll down, okay. The way the program works is you, the individual, go to a nonprofit. HPD has earmarked a handful in each borough, a handful of nonprofits that deal with homeownership or other housing matters that is allowed to give this workshop, that is qualified to give this workshop. Those nonprofits also charge fees. And the fee, like for example, NHS, which is Neighborhood Housing Services, can charge, for example, I don't know, back several years ago, it was like $77 for the consultation fee plus another $250 or $300 for the workshop fee. So you're already starting off at $300+ in addition to the $850 application fee that HPD charges, and it's right here in the term sheet. If you go to the first link that you'll see where it says term sheet, here's the business about AMI, family size, etc. You scroll down, of course, it's in the fine print. I'll just do a control F. 850. There it is. You all see that? Fees? A non-refundable application processing fee of $850 payable to the HPD loan servicer is required. Do you all see that? I highlighted it. Yeah. So again, it's $850 is going to HPD. In addition to that, you also have to pay anywhere from $50, $100, whatever it is, $300 to the nonprofit for a low income, moderate income applicant.
Okay, that's it, Candy?
Yeah, I have my reserves about it, but okay, that's the way she's explaining it. But I was at HPD's presentation, and part of that 850 goes towards, the servicer as well.
Okay, did you, sorry, Candy, did you say that you spoke to HCCI?
No, we were all at a presentation about this program. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm not trying to contradict you. It's only because I've heard, and I'm learning. So if you have access to information
I
that
was actually, you can go to HPD's for that RFP, because that was an RFP that was pulled out. And you can, I'm not sure if they have it already still recorded, but maybe you can, go into their website and then you can see the recording of it.
I wouldn't know where to find it, but if you could, I'll put my email address in the chat so you can just send it to me when you find it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bernkoff?
Yes, thank you. I'm actually just trying to find a way to send the information to all panelists. I see folks can't see my messages, and I want to make sure to get the information I mentioned to everybody that's participating on the call tonight.
Not sure about that. Marlene, could you help Ms. Bernkoff out?
I'm sorry, John, do you mind repeating yourself?
No, Ms. Bernkoff is having a problem getting information to all the panelists. Is there any way that you could help her out?
I will try on the back end. Okay, no problem.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, Ms. Khan, thank you for the information. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, but well, actually, the thing is, before we go on, the thing is that is there anyone on the committee that would make a motion for a letter of support for this, for Ms. Khan's presentation, for the resolution? And I don't see anybody. Well, and since I don't see any hands raised, I guess we will need to study this farther. So we'll take this up at a later time. Okay, Ms. Khan, thank you again for your presentation. Okay, now we have presentation, correct, Marlene?
Yes, I'm trying to help Ms. Bernkoff in the background. Give me a minute.
Okay. Well, you take your time. As soon as you're ready, we'll continue.
John, Mr. Chair.
Yes, who's calling me?
Candy.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just give a point of clarity about the Housing Connect and the way that actually works? Any housing development that's being done be it a state, city, or federal level, it's all gonna go through the Housing Connect. Anyone that's gonna apply, that's the way they're gonna do the system. The system is through that, Housing Connect. And then people can have a choice to either do it online or by paper. That's the choice. But that's the latest and the best and the new, that's the new thing right now. And it's all whether city, state, or own. It is all going to go through Housing Connect. It's going to be advertised and marketed through the Housing Connect. That's how that's going to be. And if that changes, that policy changes, then we must hear that from HPD. But most of the time, most the housing developments are funded that even if they fund it through the state, they go through Housing Connect. Even if you go through their website, it takes you into the Housing Connect website. It was just a point of clarity.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I was muted. I'm sorry. Discussion on a request for a letter of support for fair tax relief for co-ops and condos. Ms. Mapp and Ms. Lamb, are you here?
I am
Yes.
Chair.
Yes, we are, Chair.
Okay. Okay. The floor is yours.
May I share my screen, please?
I
Thank
think
you.
that's yes. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you all for your service. So there is a housing tsunami going on, not only in the entire New York State, but in East Harlem as it relates to low to moderate co-op owners who are threatened with foreclosures. Specifically, the buildings are 1825, 1831, and 1775 Madison. It's indeed heartbreaking to hear my neighbors share their fears and their anguish as they know that they're not going to be able to afford to live in their home that they've lived in the last 25 plus years. And so how did this happen? The problem, well, over 20 years ago, when there was this law called 421A tax abatement, well, has been allowed in certain buildings to expire without a replacement plan. Many of the neighbors that I talk to, that we talk to, we're not married to the number or what it's called, but just relief as it relates to a tax abatement so that our taxes are not going to increase as early as the end of this year, 20%, next year, 40%, the following year, 60%, and the following year, 80%. We, board members, you should know that we have met with many legislators, our Senator Clear. We have talked to city council candidates. And in some instances, not all, but in some instances, it was about informing them because they were so focused on one particular part of the housing portfolio in New York City, for example, rentals, and they should, but not understanding how one legislation would impact another of thousands of residents who want just to live in East Harlem and invest in this community. And so, yes, we have this presentation and we're happy to share this with the board through email, but we also shared with them solutions. And so what we have said or looked at was the J51, definitely an immediate pause on property taxes until a new legislation is signed. And as recently as maybe 2 days ago, maybe more, the New York State Legislature has passed or extended the abatement for 4 years for co-op and condos, but that was only for certain buildings, not the ones that we live in. And so joining me is Tamika Mapp, who has a great resolution that she would like to share with you as we focus on solutions.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you so much, Community Board.
and the chair. So in conjunctions with the community members of the whole, we design what is called a fair tax relief for homeowners, for co-op and condo owners, because when our co-ops and condos, when the 421A got started, they put a time stamp on it, 25 years. They didn't realize that majority of the people that is buying these co-ops and condos, they are buying it because this is the only home they will ever own it entirely. Majority of the people that came about 20, 25 years ago are seniors on a fixed income, and they cannot afford the raise of the taxes. You know, my theory, if the state gave us tax relief, they should be able to extend it or create a new program for the existing for the next 99 plus years that they have it. The misconception is when it comes to the 421A, is majority of people who are, you know, made 80% of the AMI, but that's far from the truth. We have people that's between 30 to 45% AMI that wanted home ownership. And now they're kind of like left out there to kind of like die or to give up their property because they can't afford the maintenance, which is tied into their taxes. In conjunction of Sabrina's building, we actually have a total of 4 more buildings, and crossing over City Council 8 and City Council 9 as well, that's being having a hard decision within 2 years, maybe 3 years. Do I figure out, do I sublet my apartment or do I just sell my apartment because I can't afford the maintenance of it all? You can go to the next slide. So we're asking, I'm asking for a letter of support so I can send this resolution to our state elected officials. I was already in conversation with our assembly member, our 2 state senators. So it would be, you know, a privilege for Community Board 11 to stand with us to making sure that we have affordable homeownership opportunities in the co-op and condo area, and making sure that our seniors or low-income homeowners get some relief so they can stay in their homes and not be stressed due to them not being able to stay in a home. I have a couple call me every single day. They have anxiety because they don't know if they can stay in their home. Where else will they go if they have to sell their homes? Because if you look outside of the umbrella, when it comes to rentals, there's nothing affordable that actually be able to live in our community. So this resolutions is asking the state and the state Department of Finance to come up with another program to help low-income homeowners, senior homeowners, and as well as those who's on disability.
As well as those who have, that's right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next one.
Oh, that was the last one.
That's it. Yeah. So we're open for any questions as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any? Yes, but before I could even say it, I see a question already.
Hey, Candy.
Candy.
Hi, I'm sorry. I know you're probably saying like this girl again, but this listen, Tamika, I would love to support that because I'm all about the home ownership. I'm familiar with the HDFCs and the whole 21A when I was complaining about how it's coming to an end. And, you know, it's like you're saying the British are coming and nobody was paying attention at the time, but here we are today. And so now moving forward, I would like to support that, but I would like to see the writing of it. And I was looking through my agenda and everything in case I might have missed your letters, you know, your support that you just put up on the screen to read it and understand exactly what it's in the details.
I'll put it in the chat. I'll put a link in the chat, okay?
Okay, but I like to have tangibles.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
I said, I'm sorry. I was just so in a hurry to get it before.
Yeah, no, because I know that I'm probably not the only one that may want to see it because it was so, you know, my glasses still couldn't even see all that. But I understand and I support the homeowners, and there may be another loophole for them. Have them in the moment until they can come up with a solution for them to apply for the screen that they do have for homeowners that are seniors. And you may want to look into that, and that's with the city, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's what I told them too. But it's not going to be able to take the bulk of it away from them.
right.
They're still going to have some type of a struggle to pay that maintenance. So for those who don't know how the co-ops and condos are structured with the real estate taxes, right?
With
For
the
the
stuff.
last 25 years, they got kind of like a relief. They paid $28 for that whole building that's going up. Right now, since everything is expiring, half of our buildings is worth $1 million, right? So when we take $1 million, divide that by, let's say 40 apartments, everybody's taking a big hit of that, right? I live in a 421A apartment building, and half of my tenants that I moved in here 10 years ago, they already sold their apartment and gone already. That's
It's
how
prime
bad.
real estate, that's why.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want to take up a lot of time because I know the timing is 9:19 right now. But if there's any way that I know you, how soon do you need this letter of support?
By September.
Okay, so that gives us enough time, I guess. It's up to the chairs, our board chair and the chair to the housing committee to see how we can go about supporting your letter of support, as long as we can all see all your details. But I am very most heart, I'm sympathizing with you guys and everybody that's going through the whole situation. And if there's anything I can do to support on a different capacity as well, you can count on me with that.
Thank you, Candy.
Well, thank you, Candy, and also you asked the question. I was going to ask, when did they need? If they need it in September. And also the thing is, the print was a little small for me too. My eyes are bad anyway, so but I would love to read it, and I would love to support it, and but I would just like to read it. Xavier.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your patience with a long meeting. Thank you, John, for leading the charge, and to our presenters, Tamika Mapp, Sabrina Lamb. Appreciate you being in the space, although not in person, but from the comfort of our home offices or personal spaces. Knowing it's in September, and as a reminder to all members of the public and the board, we have taken the precedence of having a presentation, waiting till the next month to take a position that allows us to do our due diligence, ask back and forth questions, and then bring it out into the open the subsequent month. Hearing that September is the time, that gives us more than ample time, if I'm understanding everything correctly, to go back and forth during recess and really dive into the details and maybe find other opportunities to improve any potential legislative recommendations that could improve what you presented tonight. But again, in the efforts of leaning in, I implore everyone to spread the message that if you have something that is of great import, to present a month or two prior, and so that the board can actually do its due diligence. But in general, with the 421A abatement program, there were many deficits within that initial legislation, how it was exploited by developers, and how we must now find pathways for those that are on fixed income, whether they're pensioners, seniors, et cetera, and so on. So I appreciate you bringing this before us, and look forward to reading it. And again, Tamika, anytime you want to send something to me, feel free. We'll get it disseminated to the appropriate committee time. But thank you so much for being part of the solution as we work together.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Xavier. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, if not, Ms. Matt, Ms. Lamb, we will consider this. We will read it, and this will be on the agenda at our next meeting. So the thing is that but we appreciate you presenting to us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. And if you need anything from us, feel free to reach out. We're happy to provide any additional information for you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think that was the last presentation, Marlene.
No, you have one more addition to the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, I almost forgot about this. Yes, the discussion in reference of NYCHA's appliance agreement. Okay, okay. The thing is that we excuse me, is Miss Richardson still on?
Yes.
Yes, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't know that I was presenting tonight.
Oh no, you know you can just explain
Okay,
what
about 2 or 3 years ago, vendors was coming around to NYCHA developments offering seniors and people on disability and low income free air conditioners, not knowing that in 2 or 3 years they would have to start paying $8 a month for the electricity bill, towards the electricity bill. Now they're saying if you don't pay the $8 a month, that you're facing eviction. And my thing is that I know a lot of people love air conditioners, not me. I love the fans. That if NYCHA is going to threaten them like that, then take the air conditioners back, because it's not fair for people on fixed income thinking that, you know, NYCHA was looking out for them, and now they have to put in their budget this $8 a month, even in the wintertime when air conditioners aren't even used. So there got to be some kind of solution, or what, something need to be sent to NYCHA to tell them, when you give seniors or people on disability or low income a gift, it's a gift. Don't start charging them because NYCHA is in need of what, $465 million of back rent. That should not be put on the tenants that now have the air conditioners. So there have to be some kind of resolution to this, because the tenants are going to management, fussing and yelling, receiving the letter. And I wish that I could, or somebody would have put the letter on the Zoom meeting to explain, you know, what's going on. But thank you for having me, and let's see what's going to happen with this charging tenants now for ACs that never really asked for them, thinking that NYCHA gave them the ACs for comfort or during the COVID time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Richardson. Actually, someone sent me a copy of a letter that a resident received, and I noticed that that they said starting July 1st that they if they don't return the air conditioners by May 31st, effective July 1st, that their tenancy could be affected, and that you know that's, I mean, I it's kind of, you know people, I guess, assumed that they were being given these air conditioners. Now they're saying that it was being, they would just basically like on loan, and that if you're not going to pay $8 a month extra for electricity charge for an air conditioner, that you have, that they have to give it back. So, but
They have
and
to
also,
give it back. They have to give it back or face eviction, which is
yeah.
terrible. You know, like, give them back and see where they're going to store all of these air conditioners. Actually, a vendor got upset with me because I didn't want an air conditioner. I says, no, I don't want one. Miss, they're free. You should take it. And, you know, I mean, they had an attitude. Now, look what they're doing now. Now they want to charge you for the comfort. And even if they charge $8 a month, I don't think that they should pay in the winter time also, because they don't use the air conditioners in the winter. But a letter need to go to NYCHA to tell them they need to stop this harassment immediately for the seniors, disabled, and low income.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Now, are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Chair. Good night, everyone. Ms. Teresa, I was made aware of that situation, and it's happening in every development. And you are absolutely right. But they're saying that management is supposed to come and remove the ACs. The residents aren't supposed to do it themselves. The language in the letter is threatening. I will testify to that. And it does cause a hardship because when they originally gave these air conditioners out, it was because we were going through COVID and we were going through high heat waves during the time. So it was this program and this is what NYCHA does. They adopt these programs where they get this magical funding, and all of a sudden, all the seniors, like she said, and everyone else were getting these ACs. Now they want to charge them for having the AC. It's supposed to be for 3 years, and the 3 years is up now. So that's why they're charging people. But they never stated that in their lease. They never put out any literature explaining how, what, when, where, or why these ACs were given out and what would happen after the 3 years of them having the ACs. And I totally agree with her. Everybody should take it out and give it right back to NYCHA and let them figure out what they're going to do with all these used ACs. And I yield the floor back.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Perez. Candy?
Sorry. Yeah, you know what? I agree with them. Give it back to them and apply with the city that is giving it to you for free. That's just it. Because that contradicts exactly what New York City is doing right now, even though it's on a first come, first serve, but they're giving away either the fans or the air conditioners, and they're giving it for free with no strings attached. So for NYCHA to do that, that's very unfair. And, it's bad. The good thing is that we're having internet given to NYCHA for free. Why can't they do the same thing, especially towards the seniors? That should be looked at, and we should put some type of pressure to NYCHA about that. We should not just stay quiet about it.
With the free internet, if you go under regular spectrum, you have to pay. But if you go
that's another thing, because they take everything away from you.
Wait, Candy, wait. If you go under big Apple Connect spectrum, then it's free. And a lot of people are making mistakes regarding which spectrum should be used. NYCHA is always giving you something free, and then they're pulling it back.
Wow, I guess I'm on the regular spectrum from Time Warner, but I think that right now we should just put NYCHA on the gun to just say, you know what, be transparent about exactly what when they offering something. What are they giving? What are the strings attached? To do this is like like a hook and bait, and that's not fair to the public. Right about now, we're going through enough hardship, and I think that we should be demanding of them to be more transparent than that. There should be a solution about that.
And now these seniors are going into the summer months, and now you want to snatch the air conditioners out.
Okay. Thank you, Candy. Beverly Pavone, I didn't make that mistake.
Yes, thank you, John. And in regards to the city giving you the air conditioning or the fan for free, if you're getting them in a NYCHA apartment unit, would you still have to pay the $8? Because I thought NYCHA doesn't pay Con Edison.
No, you pay water and Con Edison. You pay water and air condition. Yes, you do.
So you would still pay a fee for having an air conditioner in a NYCHA apartment, regardless, even if you bought it yourself.
That's correct.
Yep.
Because I do.
And how much would that fee be? Would that be more than the $8 they asking for now?
No, it's $8 per air conditioner because I have two. So
it's
$4. Some complex is $10.
So if you take these air conditioner out, like for some people during the winter months usually pull their air conditioners and put them on the floor in their building, and if it's not being used, I agree that if during the winter months, you know, just like you have a heating system, a heating season, you have a summer season. So during the heating season, the summer season, yeah, I can see them asking for something, but when it's the winter season, when we know from October to May 31st is the winter season, that should be $0 for air conditioning across the board for any NYCHA building. Maybe that's something that can be put in writing, or a solution to the problem, that during the summer months, yeah, but during the winter months where the city has a thing where from October 31st, I believe, or October 1st to May 31st, you're supposed to have heat and hot water. The heat's supposed to be on at 55 degrees. Maybe that could be something that could be written into some type of solution, that for that time period, you're not paying any electricity for air conditioner being in your house, whether you keep it in your apartment or not. I mean, in the window or not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Beverly. Xavier?
Quick question. I think the staff may have reached out to NYCHA and Brian over there on it. Marlene, refresh my memory. Did we receive a response regarding this explanation with the electrical versus, the actual unit?
Yes, you received a response and I sent it to the committee today. So you also have read the response already. Yes, Brian did respond in regards to this.
Okay. And the charge for holding on, is it the electricity that's being charged, not the unit supplemental?
It's the electricity. Yes, it's in the response. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify on that. And if they surrender the unit, because typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marlene, they typically, NYCHA, and again, NYCHA residents typically don't pay the electrical. And if I'm just pulling off of the letter memory of it, it's just the supplemental on the consumption, correct?
Yes.
Xavier, could you email or send a copy of that letter to me, please? Because not being a member, I wouldn't receive that letter.
We will be more than pleased. And I appreciate everyone's patience, like many of us, nonstop. And I've been listening to this meeting as well as one other. So I appreciate your patience. We'll get that disseminated. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify on that.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate
Xavier.
everyone's patience. Thank you, John, for entertaining.
Okay, thank you. Steph?
Good evening. I just want to make a suggestion. In the meanwhile, residents who may want to continue to have their AC, I know people who receive a subsidy such as Social Security or SSI, yearly they can do a tax credit where they receive a small amount of money from the state back. I know that NYCHA residents, there's an electrical one that they can also do. And I know that NYCHA residents usually were not able to do that because they don't pay for electricity, but maybe we can coordinate that with someone where residents can get that sort of benefit back. I don't know how much the benefit is, but that might be something that they want to entertain if they want to continue having the AC. I believe it was Tiffany who said in the message in the chat room, were there agreements made with the residents when they brought the ACs? I was in the housing leads during this time. I don't think that there were agreements made. I think some residents did get agreements, other residents didn't, but I don't think there was an agreement directly which said after a certain amount of years, we're going to cover it, and we're not going to cover the AC fee. The AC fee is an electrical fee. It should be only $4 per AC. And I think maybe this might be a suggestion for the committee to maybe, come up with a resolution or a letter stating to the city, maybe this could be something that they can put within their budget. Because I don't think it's fair that residents don't have an AC, especially when this was given to them for free. But also, I do understand that NYCHA does have their bills, right? And as a building, they have to pay an electrical fee. And we're only paying a very slight amount of what that electricity fee is. But maybe that's something that the state and the city can budget out, and because it's not that many residents who receive the free AC. And it is seniors and people who are disabled who receive it. So that's just my point. And maybe you guys should consider that.
Thank you, Steph. Okay, now what the committee will have to do is come up with a letter or a resolution or something, and quickly, I guess, to address this, because they're talking about affecting the tenancy of anybody who does not return their air conditioners to pay $8 a month starting on July 1st. So is there does anybody want to make a motion about writing a letter or a resolution about concerning this? Okay. Wow. Candy?
So we could send a letter to NYCHA, but I thought that did Mr. Honan put it in writing about the whole response that the call was made out to them?
Yes, he says the thing is that I'm
'Cause I don't think
paraphrasing.
no one should be thrown out of their apartment for an AC. Like seriously, you know, especially they gave it and it didn't when they gave the AC, right? Did anyone sign an agreement stating that this was only during the interim for the period of 3 years, and then after the 3 years you're going to pay XYZ amount? Because I personally did not hear about that. You know, I have my own AC. I'm not an AC lover, but my health has compromised me enough that I need it. So,
but Candy, can I interrupt you 1 second, please? I'm sorry.
Sure, no, it's fine.
You're not a senior, so that's why you didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, okay.
So it was only the vendors went to management to find out who were seniors and who were on disability. And
that's
those
preying on the vulnerables.
And those are the ones that they targeted. And they didn't give out fans, they only gave out the ACs.
Okay. Now, Ms. Richardson, I have a question, and it may be slightly silly, but I have to ask. These seniors did not sign anything, did they? When they received these air conditioners?
I can only vouch for East River. The answer is no.
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know about Washington or Taft or whatever, but I know East River. And when the man came to my apartment, I didn't have anything to sign. He just said, here, take this air conditioner. You're eligible for it. And I told him no.
Okay.
We need to find out with the vendor, because HPD then probably made an agreement with the vendor. I'm not speaking for NYCHA, I mean for NYCHA, but most probably they thought, wow, this is a good idea, maybe, without realizing what stands behind, you know, the strings attached with it. I'm not sure. But all I know is that should have been disclosed, open, transparency.
And Candy, through hearsay, I heard that these ACs was donated to NYCHA.
So we need to find out the truth before anything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Candy. Ms. Ramos?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I know that when I signed my lease, I am not a senior. And every time I renew it, I sign a paper that says if I do get an AC, a washer, or a dishwasher, there's a addendum in there that I will be charged $8. I don't have one technically, but I know that I've signed that every single time. And sometimes people sign things initially and they don't really read it. But I'm not sure how this goes in aspect of the free ACs and whatnot. But I know in my lease, I signed that if I do get one or anyone in my household, that I would be paying $8.
But this wasn't lease renewals. This was just a knock on the door.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying people might have signed something and not realize in the beginning of their lease. I don't know how that goes into, like I said, the free ACs.
No, that wasn't how this was, but okay.
But anyway, thank you very much. Ms. McFarland?
Yeah, I think she
Well, we have the same thing. $8 if you get your own air condition. It's $8 for each, $10 for each air condition. So it's not that someone brought that NYCHA brought these people and then air condition and installed it for our seniors. They were not given any kind of contract. They were not told that they were going to have to pay within 3 years. It was a program that I believe that was funded by the city or something, some initiative, mayors or something initiative that was for the seniors. So we need to go back and find out what, if this vendor got paid and now all of a sudden is they want their product back. And more importantly, what the hell are they going to do with these air conditions and after they take them back? I don't understand. It's a hardship for these seniors. So why are you taking it back? They paying the $8 for the air condition anyway.
Really? That's
Okay. So, thank you very much, Ms. McFarland. Staff?
Moreover, just exactly what Beverly said and what Teresa said, more reasons I want to lend myself. If you guys want to create a resolution where you're asking for city council to put in the money to pay for these things, and also ask for NYCHA to be more regulated in how they're conducting their fees, because some people say 10, some people say 8, some people say 4. It should be regulated and it should be like certain. It shouldn't be different with each development. So again, I am lending myself, if you guys want to create a resolution where we're asking for NYCHA to be more certain when they're doing things, and maybe also asking city council to make sure that they budget this in to, or state government that they budget this in where this is getting paid for by the residents who were seniors and who did receive these ACs under the impression that they weren't going to pay these fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Okay, let me, before I make a mistake, Beverly Pabon.
Yes, I just want to let people know that I put in the chat the program that's for assistance. It's called HEAP. So I put in the chat a link to that. And I also, because we need to go back as to when NYCHA started this program, and New York One has started like in 2019, and New York One has a presentation or news article on it of NYCHA pilot program to offer free air conditioners to some residents. So maybe we can get the information from there and some of the things that we can use for the resolution or a letter to NYCHA to try to rectify what they're trying to do.
Thank you, Beth.
John, I hate to keep jumping in. I can't find that raised hand thing. But all the NYCHA people are also not paying for Spectrum Internet. Now, I'd like to know what's going to happen, after that. You don't pay for the air conditioners. Look what happened. Now, Spectrum is giving you free internet, NYCHA people only. This is scary.
Yeah, listen, I don't even want to think about that. But are there any other questions from the committee or from the public? Steph, is that an old hand?
Sorry about that. Yeah, but I'd like to say that you're very right. What is going to happen with these internet, because they are free now, and what's going to happen later?
Yeah, I know, because the thing is that God help any of these folks that in a couple of years they get this huge bill from their from their internet company. Okay, but anyway, the thing is that this is going to require a little research, and also Steph, could you contact me tomorrow so we can talk about this a little bit? And anyone else who wants to talk to me about this tomorrow, you know my number. You call me, because I'm taking notes and I'm trying to put things together now. But it's in the middle of a meeting, it's a little hard to do. So I'll work on this starting tomorrow. Ms. Richardson, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we will put out a letter or a resolution concerning this, because from what you're telling us, that's not really fair, and it really should be addressed.
I know. I'm going to try to join the board. We need more nature people on this committee.
Well, let me see, we got 2 already, and we may get a couple more. But you're welcome to come. We'll gladly welcome you.
No,
There's a lot.
I'm in the share program. I will share with you whether I'm on a committee or not. That's what we do in this community.
Okay, that's appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, that's the last of the presentations, Marlene.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now, okay, we're in the home stretch. Is there any old business? No, I hear crickets. That sounds okay. Okay, is there any new business? More crickets. Okay. Before I adjourn, I just want to say a couple of things. I want to thank the members of the committee for being attentive and giving their time and being patient all year. And I truly appreciate it. And we'll, like, the thing is that when we come back in September, we'll pick back up and try to get as much work done as possible. But I am going to say this: it's not set in stone. But you know that come September, it is budget and district needs time. And the thing is that it's like I said, not set in stone, but I may request a meeting during the summer, so we don't have to run around like chickens with our heads chopped off in September and October to get our requests in. But just keep an eye out, okay? But I want to make sure that I tell all of you, have a good and safe summer, and everybody in the public also have a good and safe summer out there. And I'll be seeing you around at some events as well. But now, Marlene, you can go the roll.
Johan Chowdhury, Roger Flores, Brandon Gillespie,
Here.
John Green, Beverly Pavone,
Shalom, present.
Claudia
Good night.
Perez,
Present.
Dawn Sanders, Anne Marie Vasquez is excused, Candy Vivas Vasquez,
Here.
Jason Wu, and Cynthia Ramos.
Present.
Thanks.
Oh, oops! I had muted myself. As I said, have a great summer, everybody. And by the power vested in me by Community Board 11, I pronounce this meeting adjourned at 9:51 p.m.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll get married to that. Good night, everyone. Have a safe summer. See you in the community.
Yeah, you too.